Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Hello, I'm Steve Whistler, President of the Board of Education. I'd like to welcome you to the February 11th, 2026 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We are also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast throughout the month on Channel 21. Public participation will be held at approximately 5:15 p.m. following the reports section of the board meeting agenda. Speakers will be directed into the boardroom from the building lobby and are allotted 3 minutes to address the board. As a reminder, please silence all cell phones and other devices. Board members, please turn off your microphones when you're not speaking. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where? May I have a motion to approve today's agenda? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. I believe seconded by Ms. Battaglia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now may I have a motion to approve the minutes, the unapproved board meeting minutes for January 14th, 2026. So moved by Dr. Malvo.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Are there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Now may I have a motion to approve the work session meeting minutes for January 29th, 2026? So moved by Dr. Dorsey.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Battaglia. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now it's time for our Carroll County Student Government Report. Mr. Mason, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, board members. Dr. McCabe. My name is Mason Dean, a senior at Winters Mill High School, and I am your president of the Carroll County Student Government Association. On today, February 11th, CCSGA successfully held its second General Assembly of the year from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at South Carroll High School. This assembly served as a major milestone for student leadership, advocacy, and organizational continuity. During the General Assembly today, CCSGA introduced our two candidates for the next student representative on the Board of Education. I am pleased to announce that these candidates are Brooklyn Ellis and Lauren Lucena. In lieu of a primary election today, because we only had our two candidates, we still proceeded with our speeches and Q&A sessions, but we did not hold the election in lieu of campaign time. These students will advance in the selection process and continue engaging with CCSGA leadership as we move forward. A video session for each candidate will be created and sent to every high school advisory so every high school student may cast their vote for the next trial. These elections take place right around the end of March. We don't have dates yet, but they are coming. In addition to the election, delegates participated in a variety of student-led workshops focused on leadership development, advocacy, and practical skills, including guidelines for AI use and avoiding misinformation. These sessions allowed students to engage in meaningful discussions and apply leadership concepts in relevant real-world contexts. The diversity of topics encouraged participation across grade levels and school representation. We were also honored to hear from our keynote speaker, Aaron Bishop, the Director of Community Impact at the Boys and Girls Club in Westminster, whose remarks emphasized service, opportunity, and the importance of community-centered leadership. I would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to our Board of Education guests, President Whistler and Ms. Zimmer as well, for attending the General Assembly and supporting student voice through their presence and welcoming remarks. Prior to the event, CCSGA held a planning meeting on February 3rd to finalize logistics, programming, and delegate coordination. This meeting ensured that the General Assembly was organized, efficient, and that presentations were completed. Looking ahead, I and other members of the CCSGA delegation will participate in the Maryland Association of Student Councils Executive Board meeting on this Saturday, February the 14th, from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., held virtually. This meeting provides an opportunity to hear regional reports from across the state, including one that I will be delivering on behalf of the Carroll County Student Government Association. Any interested students are encouraged to register by Thursday, February the 12th at 5 p.m. to attend. Please use personal email addresses, as the CCPS systems will not allow you to receive confirmation or the meeting information because they are from external sources. The Carroll County Student Government Association remains committed to supporting student voice, leadership growth, and creating a strong community across the county. We look forward to continued collaboration throughout the remainder of the school year. Thank you all so much for your time today. Have a great evening, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your leadership. Very nicely done today at the SGA meeting. Next on our agenda are board member activities and correspondence. Can we start with our student member of the board today? Thank you.
Thank you. So, I hope everyone enjoyed the snow days at the start of the semester and had a smooth transition back to school. On January 24th, I attended the MASC legislative session at Loch Raven High School with Mr. Mason Dean and Mr. Melhorn and a couple other students from the county. It was really great to be surrounded by student leaders from across the state debating and voting on bills that impact students. We also narrowed down 4 state SMOP candidates to 2 finalists, so congratulations to David and Lumina on advancing. On Saturday, February 2nd, I attended the Ethics Bowl competition at the University of Baltimore. We competed against numerous schools from across Maryland, and I'm proud to share that Liberty High School earned the most overall points. A huge thank you to Ms. Summers for her time and dedication in coaching our team. And like Mr. Mason Dean was stating, today we held our General Assembly at South Carroll High School. I had the opportunity to present a workshop on youth advocacy, and it was just overall great connecting with students across the county. So thank you to Ms. Simmer and President Whistler for attending and supporting us. I just want to say how much I love seeing student involvement across the county. It was really nice just giving out my contact information and just being able to talk to students who had some questions regarding this drop position. And officer applications will be coming out soon, so advisors should definitely keep an eye out for their email for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to go next, Ms. Zimmer? Thank you.
I'd be happy to. So this week is National School Breakfast Week. National School Breakfast Week, March 2nd through 6th, celebrates the importance of nutritious school breakfasts, and giving students a great start to every day. A nutritious breakfast provides students with the fuel to learn and makes them more responsive to classroom instruction. Thank you to the hardworking cafeteria members and food service workers for their dedication in providing our students with the nutrition they need to grow, learn, and succeed in school. And as a mom of 2 kiddos who eat breakfast at school every day, I can echo this thanks. I'm just so grateful to the folks in the school cafeterias who are making that possible. On Friday, January 16th and Tuesday, February 10th, I participated in committee meetings for the Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Carroll Education Day. On January 27th, I attended MABE's Legislative Day, which was moved to a virtual format due to the snow. Brooke Learman, Comptroller of Maryland, provided an update on Maryland's fiscal outlook. Edward Casemeyer, Board Chair of the Interagency Commission on School Construction, and Alex Donahue, Executive Director, spoke about the current state of Maryland public school construction landscape, including facility challenges, capital project backlogs, and strategies for sustainable funding and infrastructure planning. On Thursday, January 29th, I attended the fiscal year 2027 work session here at Central Office. On Thursday, January 29th, I attended the official kickoff for my son's Battle of the Books team. I'm very much looking forward to that event. It'll be my first time attending this year. On February 5th, I attended the Security Council, and as Mr. Dean mentioned this morning, I attended the CCPS Student Government Association's General Assembly at South Carroll High School. Thank you, Mr. Dean, and thank you, Ms. Jasmina, for inviting me out. As they mentioned, I had the opportunity to hear from Aaron Bishop of the Boys and Girls Club of Carroll County, who spoke to students about youth advocacy and why their voice truly matters. I also had the privilege from hearing from the 2 students currently running for next year's student member of the board-elect. I cannot tell you how impressed I was by both candidates. One serves as a team captain for 3 sports in her high school, and the other already has earned more than 200 community service hours as a 9th grader. Our students will have a difficult decision ahead of them. We're fortunate to have such strong student leaders, and I look forward to seeing the outcome of their election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmer. Now I'd like to go to Dr. Malvo.
Thank you. February is Gifted and Talented Education Month. Carroll County Public School offers programs to meet the instructional needs of all students, including our most highly able learners and those students who demonstrate gifted learning traits. The Advanced Academics program identifies student talent and extends students' learning experiences. Thanks to all our advanced academic teachers for the work that they do to build the program and enrich the instructional experiences of our students. Some of the activities that I participated over the course of the month. On January the 15th, I attended the Carroll County Commissioners' reception, and I appreciated speaking with our commissioners in a casual setting while learning about ongoing projects and local initiatives of interest. On January 21st, I attended the Maryland Sheriff's Association meeting hosted by Sheriff DeWeese. Key presenters listed for the meeting were Vernon Liggins, Acting Maryland Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE Director, as well as Christopher Heck, Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations in Maryland. At the meeting, I voiced the concern of CCPS parents and citizens with regards to ICE agents coming into our schools and detaining students. I was assured that they did not, and this would not happen in our county or around the state. Similar to what Sheriff DeWeese related at an earlier board meeting, Mr. Heck confirmed ICE agents directly communicate with law enforcement, that ICE agents will not burst into schools to arrest students, and in his 23 years on the job, this has not occurred. In addition, some in law enforcement were awaiting the ruling in California that recently came in which a federal judge blocked the enforcement of a law that bans ICE agents from wearing masks. The judge ruled that the No Secret Police Act discriminates against federal law enforcement officers, but upheld the No Vigilantes Act that requires agents to display their agency and name or badge number. Thank you, Sheriff DeWeese, and to the sheriffs across the state for letting me join in your meeting. Great efforts are being made to keep our community safe, and further reassurance came that Carroll County is not in danger of ICE agents coming into our schools to apprehend our students. On January 29th, I took part in our FY27 Operating Budget Board work session. Revenue estimates, a history of budget reductions, and proposed actions to balance the deficit were some of the areas considered. Thank you to our hardworking staff for their preparation for that work week, and for the budget hearing speakers who shared instructive perspectives. On February the 5th, I attended the Security Advisory Council meeting. It was shared that we would have ample security at sporting events and CCPS athletics. In addition, use of cameras, car readers, kiosks were among some of the items discussed to bring increased general security. Thank you, Lieutenant Phil Lawrence, Curtis Pierce, Brian Elliott, Ray Prokop, and other leaders in the group, and I appreciate you addressing questions about smartphone use during emergency situations. Also, I want to say off the cuff that, again, this is African American History or Black History Month, and to go ahead and try to support our schools. Different schools are having different events. You can go on the CCPS website and look for what type of events are going on. But again, we want to support our students, our staff for African American History Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. Ms. Battaglia.
February is Career and Technical Education Month. CTE prepares students with technical, academic, and employable skills for success in the workplace and a further education. These programs provide a range of opportunities for students to learn technical skills, earn college credit, and acquire industry certifications by completing a sequence of courses in their area of interest. Thanks to the outstanding efforts of our teachers and students, our CTE programs continue to be recognized for excellence in Maryland and across the nation. Along with CTE Education Month, on January 21st and 22nd, I had the privilege of attending the Career and Technology Center completion certificate ceremonies. And I also participated there as a mom, witnessing my son receive his certification in welding. January 29th, I attended our Board of Ed budget workshop and budget hearing. February 9th, I attended the Maryland District 5 and 42C night in Annapolis. Those in attendance heard from our county delegates and senators on what has been happening in our state so far due to the legislative session and bills they are submitting and working on. It was pretty well attended. And upcoming events, we do have our CAC meeting coming up later this month. And just for fun, today is National Peppermint Patty Day. So there are little peppermint patties out there on the desk in a little Valentine-shaped bowl, so help yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Dorsey.
Okay, thank you. I'll begin by sharing information about Instructional Assistance Day. Our schools will be celebrating Instructional Assistance Day on Tuesday, February 24th. This day is set aside to recognize the efforts of our instructional assistants and paraprofessionals who help to provide a quality education to our students. The members of the Board of Education and I would like to thank these dedicated and hardworking employees for all they do for our students and teachers. They are an important part of the instructional team, and their work is invaluable in maintaining the high educational standards of our school system. So again, many thanks to our instructional assistants. For my activities on January 21st and 22nd, I also attended the certificate ceremonies at the Career and Technology Center. And again, the achievements of students who completed their programs were highlighted, and we have a lot to be proud of. So congratulations to the class of 2026 students and their parents, and many thanks to Mr. Riddle, Mrs. Hopkins, the teachers, all of the supervisory staff, and all who have been involved with supporting and preparing the students. On January 23rd, I attended our Curriculum Council meeting. We had a presentation from Marcy Myers, elementary math supervisor, Jared Mielke, secondary supervisor, and Adam Weller, pre-K through 12 coordinator. They shared information on the elementary and secondary mathematics program. We also had an interactive presentation on our ESOL, or English for Speakers of Other Languages, and ML, Multilingual Learners program, and that was presented by Pam Mesta, supervisor of ESOL, Sally Powell, ESOL resource teacher, and Melissa Thomas, ESOL resource teacher. And again, I always like to thank Steve Wernick for his planning and facilitation of the meeting. We find that the meetings are always very informative and engaging for members. On January 24th, I had the privilege of attending the 2026 Middle and High School All-County Orchestra Concert at Century High School. Many thanks to Carl Stewart, Supervisor, Greg Killian, Assistant Supervisor in the Office of Visual and Performing Arts, the music teachers and administrators of our middle and high schools, the orchestra students, parents, the community, and the host school staff for supporting the concert. The guest conductors were excellent and were able to have the students share beautiful music. So congratulations to all of those all-county orchestra students. On January 26th, I attended a virtual conference program committee planning meeting to prepare for the first meeting of the year with the full committee. On January 27th, I also attended the virtual MABE Legislative Day meeting. And even though we could not meet in person because of the weather, we were able to have a very valuable meeting. And as has been shared, we heard from Comptroller Brooke Learman and also featured speakers from our Interagency Commission on School Construction. So I won't go over the specifics because Ms. Kristen has already shared those. So again, it was very informative, and I was glad that we were able to still have that day, even though it was held virtually. We still got some great information. On January 29th, I attended the budget work session and hearing with fellow board members. February 2nd, I attended a MABE legislative meeting, and at that time, priority bills and bills to mention for the legislative session were discussed. Representatives for the legislative committee were able to vote on 3 of the bills that were discussed, and they had to share whether they opposed, supported with amendment, or suggest that we take no position on the bills that were being discussed. And I know later on we'll have a report concerning our legislative session. On February 3rd, I participated in a conference program committee meeting in which we began preliminary discussions for planning this year's MABE conference. February 7th, I had the opportunity to attend the 2026 Middle and High School All-County Band Concert at Manchester Valley High School. So again, many thanks to Mr. Stewart and Mr. Killian and the music teachers and administrators of our middle and high schools. This time, the band students, the parents in the community, and the host school staff for supporting the concert. So again, we had the privilege of being in the presence of some excellent guest conductors, and they shared that they only had a few hours to practice with the students, yet they were certainly able to produce some beautiful music. So again, those concerts were very special, and I was glad I had the opportunity to attend.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo, or Dr. Dorsey, apologize. I have the pleasure of talking about our National School Resources Officers Appreciation Day. Sunday, February 15th, is the School Resource Officer Appreciation Day. Our SROs play an important role in ensuring the safety and security of our students and staff. They also contribute to the culture of our schools through their interactions with students and by serving as role models. We very much appreciate our SROs and Sheriff DeWeese for their value and their tremendous partnership with our school board. As for me, I'm glad to see everyone has made it safely through the intense snow and ice that blanketed our region over the past few weeks. I appreciate the patience displayed by our parents, our students, our staff, and our bus drivers as it relates to the school schedule. Dr. McCabe, you and the entire team at Central Office did a terrific job focusing on safety. It's also important that we thank everyone who worked in the cold for many days, cleaning and clearing sidewalks, parking lots, and other areas so we could reopen and ensure safety. So thank you so much for everyone that was involved in that. It was a monumental effort, and we still have some effort to go with all the frozen temperatures. On January 29th, I participated in the budget work session here at Central Office with my colleagues. On February 2nd, I participated in a Maryland Association of Boards of Education Legislative Committee alongside my colleague, Dr. Dorsey. We did discuss, as she mentioned, several education-related bills before the Maryland State Legislature. We are continuing to assert local control and ensure that our policymakers in Annapolis hear our voice in the legislative process. On February 7th, I, like my colleague Dr. Dorsey, visited Manchester Valley High School to attend the all-county concert band performances. Congratulations to the numerous middle and high school students for their selection in both our all-county and even those who were recognized for making the all-state bands. Some of my personal favorite middle and high school memories so many years ago, coming up on my 40th year reunion here, it includes me playing a variety of brass instruments. Music and the arts do so much more than entertain us. They document and preserve our culture, and challenge our students to reach even greater heights of creativity and innovation. And finally, earlier today on February 11th, I visited South Carroll High School alongside my colleague, Dr. Zimmer, to address our Student Government Association representatives from the middle and high schools. We are so fortunate to have Mr. Melhorn and so many others who give our students a voice in how our school systems meets their needs and ways we can improve. Again, I really was appreciative of Miss Erin Bishop of the Boys and Girls Club of Carroll County, who served as the keynote speaker. She definitely delivered an inspiring message to our students that talked about empowering their voice and staying involved in the process. We have a terrific partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, which now serve over 1,100 students. They increased their service to our students by 35% this year compared to last year. So they are a terrific partner in everything we do. I do also want to say thank you to Dr. Malvo for attending that meeting with the sheriffs and senior law enforcement officers from the state and federal level. The sheriff has invited me to attend monthly meetings with those authorities because they recognize and know that we're concerned about how our schools are affected. And so I do intend on attending those meetings monthly, and I'm definitely going to extend the invitation to my colleagues that they can attend as well, because the more we're connected with them, the more communication we have, the better. So with that, I hope everyone has a fantastic Valentine's Day. Please focus on being as safe as possible as we continue to dig out of all the snow and ice. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. McCabe.
Thank you. First, congratulations to our high schools that have been named to the 2025 Advanced Placement Program School Honor Roll with distinctions. Century and Liberty achieved gold status, South Carroll and Winters Mill achieved silver status, and Francis Scott Key and Manchester Valley achieved bronze status. The AP School Honor Roll recognizes schools whose AP programs are delivering results for students while broadening participation. Schools can earn this recognition annually based on criteria that reflect a commitment to increasing college-going culture, providing opportunities for students to earn college credit, and maximizing college readiness. I also would like to congratulate the 17 students from our high schools who have earned placement in the 2026 Maryland All-State Ensembles, one of the highest honors available to student musicians in the state. Following a rigorous and highly competitive audition process, these students were selected to perform alongside top musicians from across Maryland. Their achievement reflects exceptional skill, hard work, and dedication to musical excellence. Congratulations also to the winners in the I Voted sticker contest, sponsored by the Carroll County Board of Elections. Congratulations to Sophia Estrella, grade 4, Eldersburg Elementary School. Sophia drew a Maryland blue crab on the Maryland state flag. On the crab's shell, she wrote, Future Voter, Carroll County, Maryland. Next, Samantha Croft, grade 8, Oklahoma Road Middle School. Samantha's drawing featured a Maryland flag with the words, I voted, laid across it. And finally, Grace Stein, grade 11, at Francis Scott Key High School. Grace's drawing depicts a Baltimore Oriole perched on a branch with a Maryland state flag background with I voted above the bird's head. The stickers will be given to citizens who vote during the 2026 gubernatorial election. February is Black History Month, and our schools are celebrating the achievements of African Americans and their contributions to the history of our nation. Individual schools are holding many activities throughout the month. You can find a sample of these activities on our website, and photos and videos are being posted throughout the month on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And finally, I would like to remind everyone that our second annual First Responder and Military Career Fair will be held on Thursday, February 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Carroll County Career and Technology Center. The fair will provide an opportunity for middle and high school students to explore a wide variety of career and volunteer options in these fields and to learn about the educational pathways to those careers. Members of the community are also welcome to attend.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Now at this time, we will move into our presentations. Our first is the FY27 capital plan updates. Dr. McCabe.
For our presentation this evening, we will focus on capital budget updates. Since the board adopted its capital budget request and CIP plan in October, there have been some developments. The General Assembly has convened, and the state capital budget allocations will be decided during that process based on recommendations from the IAC. The county commissioners received their preliminary CIP recommendations from staff last month, so we are aware of their starting point. We felt like this is a good time to refresh the board on your capital funding priorities and revisit the key questions involved in our 6-year CIP plan. Mr. O'Neill has a brief presentation, and then we invite questions and discussion. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Dr. McCabe, and good evening. Mr. Shockney is begging me to let him do this presentation. As Dr. McCabe said, we thought this was a good time for an update because we'll go over this timeline in a second, but you approved your capital budget request in October, and then we tend not to talk about it too much again until you approve project totals sometime in May. And so we're at the place where the General Assembly started. Mr. Zaleski's presented the initial staff recommendations to the county, so it seems like a good time. Also, sometimes there's some conversation about folks aren't really sure what the Board of Ed's capital priorities are, and so it's a nice opportunity to kind of show folks what those are and where they can pretty easily find them. So on the screen is the annual capital timeline, which doesn't follow the exact same sequence as the operating budget timeline. It really starts in May, when each year in May the board receives a draft or a proposed document called the Educational Facilities Master Plan. That is a inventory of your facilities with a 10-year planning window, and so it looks at age and condition, it looks at enrollment and utilization, and therefore sort of capacity needs, and it's a document that's required by the state, and so we produce it annually. It also has something called a facility condition index, which is the metric we use to sort of rank buildings based on both age and condition and educational functionality to determine what are the board's priorities for modernizing a new building, meaning building a replacement school sometimes, or sometimes modernizing the existing facility in place. And so two very recent examples of what those two things mean would be East Middle School and the Career and Tech Center. At East Middle School, we modernized East Middle by building a replacement building. A new school went up on the same site, and then once it was occupied, the old building was raised and the bus loop and everything was put in. At Career and Tech, the modernization occurred in the existing structure. So there was an addition and then some shifting around and some relocatables and all of that as we renovated the other original space of the building. So that's the planning document, the master plan. Then in September, you always receive a draft of a capital budget request and a capital improvement plan, and you vote on that in October. And that document, just like the master plan, goes to the county government and it goes to the state folks. At the state, it goes to an agency called the IAC, or the Interagency Commission on School Construction. Then those two requests, that document goes to those two bodies, and they work out your request in their budget process. So at the General Assembly level, the IAC makes recommendations as the General Assembly opens, and your funding request and every other Board of Ed in Maryland's becomes part of the state's capital budget that the General Assembly works out through the 90-day session. At the local level, usually mid-January, TED presents some preliminary staff recommendations to the county, and then they work out their funding in the course of their budget discussions, usually concluding in May. So that's the annual process, and we're sort of in between right now. As to the question, well, what are the board's capital priorities? They are listed pretty clearly, pretty early on in your CIP. There's sort of the the cover and the table of contents and a little bit of preamble, but then right there on page 6, this is page 6 of the CIP, so you wouldn't have to read too very far. Anybody in the world can go on our website and see it. You would see your priority rankings both in terms of the ask of the state and the ask of the county. And somebody might ask, well, why aren't they the same? Why is one not the same in both cases and so forth? And that's because in general, the local level is where funding occurs initially for design and development. So for a large project like a modernization, for instance, that would first start with something called a feasibility study, an architectural and engineering study. That would be a county-funded item, and so too is most of design and development, the building out of the plans for a project. And so usually funding originates first with the county in the initial year, and then there might be 1, 2, or 3 years of construction that follow. So there'd be some county construction funds that follow the planning allocation, and then also there would be years of state construction allocation that follow. So that explains the sequencing a little bit. The CIP itself is sort of a 6-year document. The first year, so like we're looking at 27 now, fiscal 27. The first year is the budget request for that coming year, and then there's 5 years of a plan after that, because as we just shared, construction projects sequence out over a number of years, and so we're trying to account for those years. So page 6 of your CIP online is the prioritization list. Page 7 kind of maps out those next 5 years as to where construction would be programmed to fall depending on funding. So that's a pretty easy place to go if you don't want to read the whole document, even though Mr. Kane would like you to read the whole document. You can go right to pages 6 and 7 and see the priorities. So where are we right now? At the county level, Mr. Z presented to the Board of Commissioners, I think on January 15 is when I watched it. And Mr. Zaleski just kind of gives, from the staff level as a starting point for the commissioners to take up their discussion, here's what we as the staff of the county think should be the starting point. And so here's a list of what from your request is included in those preliminary staff recommendations at the county level, and then the list of what is not included at the staff level. And then there's a kind of a footnote down there or that last bullet at the bottom. We're sort of looking at the 27 budget request and the 5-year plan to follow, but as a footnote, and you'll remember this from a recent awarded bid here on your agenda, as the actual bid results came in for the Carroll Springs HVAC project, they came in over budget, and so that was a 26 budget item that the county had already approved, but the county will now go back and add a $350 allocation so that project can meet the real life how it came in as a budget through the bid process. Kind of the big item here that we'll come back to at the end would be that at the staff level there was a recommendation not to fund the modernization feasibility study for Liberty High School, and I'll talk about why that's something we need to talk about when we get to a future slide. At the state level, where are we with the IAC making its recommendations as the General Assembly opens? The state has included funding for all of the projects that we've requested. I don't want to go off on a tangent here tonight and spend a lot of time, but one thing we always have to consider with the state, and you'll hear Ted talk about this in their meetings if you watch them like I do, sometimes a big concern we have, or the bigger concern we may have with the state, is simply the cash flow. In general, we're going to get a certain amount of money each year from the state, and so I know other counties may have had a different experience once or twice here or there, but in general, our experience has been when the state says they're committed, they commit to the project. But sometimes it may come down to, especially for a bigger project, a more expensive project, how much funding can we expect in any given year from the state, and what kind of sort of a cash flow issue does that create for us as we're trying to manage construction of a project. But the initial place where we are is that the state is committed to the projects for which we requested funding. Last sort of presentation slide we have are sort of what do we think as your staff would be kind of the key questions here. And the first question we would say, and I just said a second ago, we come back to this. critical question is, will the county fund the Liberty High School modernization? Or quite frankly, any modernization? Because if, let's say the county were to say, and this is just me being hypothetical, let's say the county were to say, we're looking at the projected budget price tag on Liberty High, and 140 million-ish is beyond our capacity, that we just believe there's no way Carroll County government could ever fund that project. That would be an answer to the question about Liberty High being an approved modernization. But behind Liberty High in your master plan and your CIP is just a whole series of other schools waiting to be modernized. I think William Winchester is next in line, and these may not be in sequence, but then would follow things like West Middle and Westminster High and so forth and so on. And I heard Ted, I think, in his presentation to the commissioners at some point recently say something like, if we have 40 schools in Carroll County and you want to keep them modernized, in theory at least, that would be modernizing a single school every year for 40 years. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing that because funding's not practical for that. And I think Ted also said, nor are we funding a modernization every other year, which would be an 80-year kind of window of time. But why that's, to me, the key question for the board is, if once the question to modernization is answered, are we going to move a modernization forward in the near term? If the answer is yes, then there's going to need to be a pretty significant commitment of funding locally and at the state level to that. Gets back to the managing the cash flow from the state. It also means, and you'll hear Ted say these things, it also means there's going to be a less likelihood that we can do other kinds of projects like systemic renovations, roofs, HVACs, that sort of thing, because the money's going to be tied up in a big project. And in the opposite view, if the county is to say we can't do any modernizations, and then we don't see the near window being one where we can fund a modernization, whether it's Liberty, whether it's Willie, whether it's another school, that will inform the reprioritization of your capital plan, because we'll be able to say, okay, we're not going to reasonably look at modernizations. And to be frank, you know, in recent years, being 20-ish, we haven't done very many modernizations. We've done, since I came here to work in 11, Mount Airy Middle was underway, and then the next modernizations have been East Middle and Career and Tech, and East Middle sort of moved forward because for that little window of time, the state identified a second pot of state capital funding called the Built to Learn Act. So it's an important question, because if there are no modernizations, then most likely we with the county would turn our attention back to a program of systemic renovations, roofs, HVACs, windows. There's no shortage of needs in our plan. It's just how would those things get prioritized. Second question, which is I think beyond the budget horizon, but it goes back to that May, June window of time for the next educational facilities master plan. We know what our enrollments turned out to be this year, and it wasn't great. But when we get the master plan in May from Mr. Kane, or the draft master plan from Mr. Kane, our facilities planner, we'll see what those new actual enrollments mean for the future enrollment projections. And you had voted at some point in the last year to pause those two projects, the expansions, the additions at Freedom and Sykesville. Pause meaning you push them out one more year in the master plan or in the CIP. You also made the decision to finish design, and you approved the construction documents at the last meeting. So that work is done. But I think when we get the next EFMP with the next enrollment projections in May, June, that's when we really will be talking to you again about what's the viability of those two projects. Do they stay in the plan? Do we move them forward? Do we pause them again or push them further to see another year's projections, for instance? Or do we just say it doesn't look like in the 5-year window we would be doing those projects at this point, and so they would be removed from the plan? That matters as well, because as long as a project's in the plan, even if it's not in the funding year of the plan, Ted and his staff have to be thinking about allocating the funding for that project if it's in the 6-year window. And then lastly, sort of a blueprint-related item, pre-K expansion. You know that we have a few phases planned for pre-K expansion construction. Phase 1 is underway with construction right now. There's a bit of there's a bit of educated hypothesis that goes into this, because I hear some folks sometimes compare pre-K under the blueprint to, I don't know, what was it, Ray, 20-ish years ago when the state mandated full-day kindergarten. And I get the analogy, but it's not exactly a perfect analogy, because the mandate for full-day kindergarten was all kids have to go to kindergarten, and all kids who have to go to kindergarten will now go full day to kindergarten. Pre-K is not that under blueprint. Pre-K is you will theoretically have all of the seats available for any student whose parents wants them to go to pre-K. And further complicating it, there should be a perfect partnership at a 50-50 level between the school system providing public pre-K seats and private pre-K providers providing private pre-K seats, so that parents can also make that choice. So there's kind of two choices there. Do I want to send my kid to pre-K? And if I do I want to send them to a seat in the school system or a private provider seat if there's enough available? So it's a difficult process to try to figure out exactly how many seats should we be trying to build. And so that's one of the many reasons why we took a phased approach. Let's get it underway, and then once we're constructed, let's see what our actual experience is. In other words, are we filling all of those seats? Or how many of those seats are we filling, and what can we extrapolate from there as to how far we should go with the next phase or the phase after that? Or should we pause this because we're not filling those seats? Because as a very wise person said to me recently when I was asking a lot of questions, when it comes to pre-K and how many of these seats we should build, it's not that no one knows, it's that no one can know until we build them and find out who actually comes. So I'll stop there for any questions or discussion, but we just thought it was a timely moment in between you approving the CIP and us bringing project totals back to you in May.
Are there any questions from colleagues? Dr. Malvo?
Just one, and this answer may not come until May, but I just wonder with that second key question, you have a very different population who's going to be served by those renovations at Freedom and Sykesville. Sykesville's mainly for the middle school classes and that level, whereas Freedom, it's all going to be pre-K and kindergarten classrooms. So with what you just said about pre-K and K, do you think enrollment numbers are going to be more favorable in terms of Sykesville in the future, or do you feel like with the pre-K and the project that we put on hold for Freedom is less likely to get the projections needed?
Yeah, Freedom's unique in a lot of ways because it's overcrowded by capacity. It will continue to be overcrowded, at least in terms of the county's adequate public facility ordinance into the future, even though enrollments overall seem to be trending down. Freedom also is the only elementary school? Yes. The only elementary school in the system that presently doesn't have pre-K. So there's no issue of capacity utilization there presently. That was just to sort of get ahead of blueprint. So I think you're right in sort of your assumption that May, June is the right time to have that full conversation. Dr. Malvo, I don't think we would have it as a whole conversation, not just about K and pre-K, but about the school utilization as a whole. And we'll know much more when Bill Kane does his newest enrollment projections and see what that looks like. And maybe May isn't the right time to make the decision. Maybe one more year of actual enrollments is the better time. The board will have to figure that out when they have those data and have that conversation at that time. I would say the trend of data the last 2 years of enrollment and the percentage by which we're not achieving our earlier projections makes me, as somebody who ultimately will have this conversation with you, question whether those projects would be viable to continue. But I think May, June is a much better time to try to figure that out.
I understand. Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
So, to my knowledge, Liberty is one of the oldest high schools in Carroll County, if not the oldest. And so I understand that modernization can be really expensive, but kicking the can down the road just means more students trying to learn in just deteriorating environments. My question is, if not soon, then when?
So and maybe one thing I didn't say earlier that I could have is, we don't modernize a lot of schools, but what we do instead is try to keep them up to date and running. So we put new roofs on them, we put new HVACs, and then we do new systems or sort of the building envelope. I think Liberty would be, Ray can try to help me from the back. Key and South Carroll would be older, and then Liberty. Why Liberty happens to be the modernization priority is also because of the functionality score. Liberty is a what's a good word? Curiously designed school facility. It's my understanding, I was in school myself then, but it's my understanding that Liberty is I think Liberty opened in 80 or was constructed in 80. It was a decision that this county made at the time, and this isn't to be critical of a decision from 1980, but it was a decision made at that time based on whatever factors existed then to build a new high school in a manner that only utilized the state participation. In other words, the county wasn't going to spend more than the maximum state participation would warrant. Is that a fair way of saying that, Ray? And that's why you get a school with kind of a multi-tiered cafeteria and little pie-shaped classrooms and that sort of ways, because on any construction where you save money, ultimately in big chunks of money is square footage. And so you're reducing square footage. So to answer your question directly, I guess, if not now, then I don't know when. It would be either never, but we would reprioritize and look at the systems for modernization. So suddenly, let me say it this way, if we know we're not going to build a new Liberty or consider building a new Liberty, then suddenly we have to say, okay, what's the age and condition of the Liberty roof, the age and condition of the Liberty HVAC system, et cetera, and where do those system projects fit into the priority list?
Ms. Battaglia?
Fellow board members, to me, like I have a great appetite to looking into a feasibility study regarding Liberty High School, particularly in addition, like building onto it. Because if anybody looks at the back of the building where they have a lot of the portables, like to me, that'd be the most beneficial thing to do is to build onto the current school, modernize it inside, much like we did with Career and Tech Center, while they're in their learning environment. Is there an appetite from my fellow board members to like, hey, even though we're having this discussion, like, let's go ahead and start looking at a potential modernization for Liberty High School and go ahead and look at trying to figure out a study?
Dr. Dorsey?
Oh, I was going to say, I had highlighted Liberty High School on page 6, just for that very reason. We've heard about the concerns with the facility, and even though we do take care of the HVAC and the roof and all of that, again, it really is in need of modernization. So I would be in favor of at least looking at a feasibility study, and I think that can help us. We've talked about, what is it, that, I might get the wrong acronym here, but the FCI, yeah, we've talked about that and trying to maintain that at a certain level as well. So it's sort of getting this on track. That might help with that index as well, is what I'm wondering.
Anytime you do a modernization, it's going to improve the overall FCI for the system. Our FCI went up noticeably when we built a new Eastman on a Career and Tech, and then when you enter a period of some years where you're not doing modernizations, your FCI will go in the bad direction. The sort of to that discussion, to that question, the argument for doing it is yes, I think the estimate for a feasibility study is a percentage of the overall budget, and construction has exploded. So you're looking at 140, I think, is the overall cost. So I think it's 340 is the ask. It will be whatever the bids dictate. So 340 is the estimate for the feasibility for study for Liberty, which is a larger building, a larger footprint of land, et cetera. It'll be whatever it turns out to be if we put the bids on the street. Reasons to do it is because, like some history we've had here, and we've hemmed and hawed before, and then all of a sudden conditions do change unexpectedly, and we could be in a place to do a modernization, but there's still unanswered questions because the feasibility study hasn't been done. Another lesson from the East Middle experience would be that similar discussion over a long period of time, when we finally moved forward with the feasibility study and design, when the state came up with the Built to Learn Act funding source, which is sort of distinct from the traditional state capital program, we were sitting there with a shovel-ready project, and we were either the first county in Maryland or one of the very first to be able to access that funding and get East Middle underway. None of that could happen without the feasibility study first happening. The feasibility study also will answer all sorts of questions, some of which you've posed and the many more. Is it most feasible to build a replacement school or to modernize the existing structure? And if so, let's say if a replacement, is the Liberty current parcel of land able to accommodate that? Yes or no? Or if it is, under what conditions? For instance, what about athletics? Could athletics occur at the same time, or would they need to be relocated for a season or a year or that sort of thing? All of those questions would then be available. And I guess the downside is, if you don't think you have the capacity to fund it at all, $300,000 isn't no amount of money, but in the grand scheme of these size capital projects, it's not millions of dollars to be able to answer all these questions. So there's some things to weigh there, and the board will have to do that. And again, I want to reiterate, the county commissioners have not made a decision, yes or no, on Liberty's modernization or any part of it. They've simply received recommendations from the staff, and Mr. Zaleski does not have some particular thing against Liberty High School or any school in the system. He's just presenting an overview of how he sees things looking ahead.
Isn't Liberty High the only high school that does not have air conditioning in the gym?
I don't think it is. I think
South Carroll.
South Carroll and Liberty are the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board members, I mean, I have an appetite to do it.
Yeah, I think we're, and again, don't we have a future meeting where we're going to talk about CIP requests and recommendations? But yeah, I agree with you, Ms. Battaglia. It's something that we got to,
Everybody a doctor.
I'll just make everybody a doctor. But I wrote down 5 comments, part of which I want to share with my colleagues, because I have had discussions with the commissioners, and I want to make sure the public is aware of it. I personally think the material conditions of our schools is an issue that is going to be of great concern in the very near future. Many of our schools are 40, 50 plus years old. And so, but you addressed one, and maybe you can expand on it. Can you tell me and my colleagues and the public kind of the advantages or disadvantages of doing modernization versus replacement? In other words, would the state pick up more if it was a modernization, or would the state pick up more of the cost if it was a replacement? Obviously, the costs are significantly different, but can you just briefly go into what the advantages and disadvantages might be of modernization versus replacement of any school?
Yeah, I think the advantages are, and it's pretty obvious, you're getting a brand new facility, and so it's to current code and conditions, like even educational delivery conditions, and therefore the cost to maintain it over time sort of starts anew in the best possible way. Doing system renovations, a new roof, a new HVAC, doesn't do much to fully fix the entire building. And so the ongoing, and not just CIP level maintenance, but the ongoing maintenance then continues and sometimes increases over the life of that building. And we've seen that. Like, we've seen us limping to the end with the HVAC at Northwest recently, and maybe Orms was another place where, and those are buildings that are past their original useful life. There's not a horizon for modernization yet, and so those systems are expiring, and we're pouring resources, not just fiscal resources, and we know from our operating budget, just below the CIP level, maintenance of our facilities is a challenge for us right now to figure out how to fund that. So it's sort of that trade. If you can afford the modernizations, then it's obviously preferable. You're going to get a new building under new conditions. You're going to get a more efficient building, so there could be savings on operational savings on utilities and those sorts of things, and you're going to spend a lot less on maintenance over those same years. But at the same time, no county that I'm aware of can afford to modernize all of its schools on a year-by-year schedule.
Sure.
I know when we did East Middle School, a lot of the discussion, because a lot of people wanted to keep it because of the historical significance that it had. But it would have cost the school system double the amount to keep the building as it was and kind of work around it than it would to build a whole new school. You know, there was so many things. It wasn't ADA compliant. The heating, the water, just the layout alone. It just was not. And it was a great school, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, when you look at the cost of certain things, I think it also depends upon the age of the school, the original building itself, too.
Absolutely does. I think East originally was in 1933 build.
Yeah.
You're talking a lot of different things. One specific example to your point was we could not put an elevator in there if we wished to. We would have had to have figured out some other addition just to have an elevator in the building.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things come up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, another issue I wrote down is this pre-K requirement that Blueprint mandates. Believe it or not, the only waiverable thing in Blueprint is pre-K. And I've talked to colleagues across the state, I've talked to many elected officials across the state. Not a single county is going to meet this pre-K mandate, a 50-50 private-public partnership.
Right.
And we are investing a tremendous amount of money, state money and local money, to meet this mandate. And it's pushing the modernization or the maintenance of our schools down the list. So I'm personally still pushing our folks in Annapolis to ease the pre-K mandate. I understand the intent. It's to, there's parents that can't afford childcare, daycare. I get it. But the pre-K mandate in Blueprint, which no county can meet, is having an incredible strain on our ability to maintain our buildings. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that it's a strain on the overall outlook of the, not just the capital budget, but frankly the operating budget. That's sort of the back end kind of pressure on local funding there. It's one of the most challenging aspects of Blueprint for us or for me because it's a true unknown. We're not very far towards the 50-50 progression, but neither are many other counties. But even within the 50% that's us, we don't have a clear sense yet of how many students are going to show up. I do think the phased approach that we've suggested that you've now adopted into the CIP is a more prudent way to go about it. We'll do a phase, we'll construct, and we'll see how those seats are being utilized. And sometimes it's also, I think, that what they call it the theory of action of Blueprint, but sometimes the practical realities. Like we could have seats available, but maybe they're not convenient for a family to utilize those seats because they'd have to figure out a way to get their student there and back every day. There's a lot of other factors beyond just the theory of wouldn't it be nice to have a full day pre-K seat available for everybody. So I think we take the phased approach, we finish the first phase, and we see where we are and then make capital adjustments to that. We're also staffing those classrooms, which is sort of the operation budget side of things too.
And I'll just add here that, as you said, us and in the other districts, we're not seeing the 50% private partnership. And I don't believe unless the requirements change from the state, any of us are going to see that increase because in practical terms and financially, it doesn't really benefit the private pre-K provider. So
I would agree. I mean, at some point that has to really be considered.
Yeah.
And if we, for the public seats, if we finish phase one, if we build it and they don't all come, then we're going to have a conversation with the state about what that means.
Yeah, there has been discussion on Ways and Means in the House on addressing the issue, but right now they're doing nothing because it's an election year, but that's okay. A few other points, and I just want to make sure my colleagues understand and the public knows. I've had in-depth conversations with our commissioners across the street on this issue. I will tell you, every one of them acknowledge it's an issue, and every one of them want to help. Every one of them want to work with us to make sure that our facilities are maintained here into the future. Some of the things that I've suggested they consider, just so that my colleagues know, I've suggested that they look at using their bond authority. And we have a terrific AAA bond rating in our county. And in my opinion, it's better to borrow and upgrade our facilities sooner and get ahead of the inflationary costs and the incredible costs we're seeing maintaining these buildings in the long term. So that's something I hope that our commissioners consider. And also, I've asked them to consider, sorry, Ted, I've asked them to consider maybe increasing the rate at which they have across the street to set aside funds for our school maintenance and construction efforts in the CIP. So, but I want the public to know that we're working in partnership with our commissioners to address this issue. And in my opinion, it's a very serious issue facing our county in the next decade or two.
And that the last thing you brought up, President Whistler, is probably worth noting for the public. And this isn't to disagree with what you just said. If they want to increase the rate, we'll take it. But it's sort of a good thing about Carroll County that is not true. Honestly, I'm not aware if it may be. I just don't know where it is in other counties, not in the two I worked for before Carroll County, whereby sort of local policy, the Board of Commissioners dedicate a specified percentage of local income tax revenue strictly for the purpose of school construction. So for better or worse, there's a standard stream of local income tax revenue that since the 90s, Ted, maybe, has been earmarked for school construction. And to my knowledge, at least in the last 16 years, the county's never deviated from that except for one year where we actually asked them to help with the operating budget. And so we would certainly take more, but that's very much a positive about the relationship we have with the county.
Yeah, everyone is quick to talk about impact fees, make developers pay impact fees. But folks, there's not a whole lot of development happening in Carroll County. And so, but I will tell you, I appreciate the conversation I've had with commissioners about this. And, in my opinion, we need to get ahead of these inflationary costs, these costs that cost us more and more and more to upgrade a school, and leverage our awesome bond rating in the county, and try to move these modernization and renovation efforts up sooner rather than later. But I just wanted to share that with my colleagues.
I was going to say, and also making sure that we are getting the state to participate too, because we do not want another situation where the county is fully funding a project. We want to make sure the state is participating.
Thank you.
Well, is there any other comments? Or thank you so much, Mr. O'Neill. Next on our agenda is Section 4, School Construction Report. Dr. McCabe.
This is our standard monthly construction report. This month, there are no major items to update, but Mr. Prokop is here for any questions you may have.
Colleagues, any questions, concerns? Hearing none, Mr. Prokop gets to have a seat. Nice job. Next, we'll move to item 4B, our legislative report. And thank you to staff for putting this together last minute. We asked them to put this together last week. Dr. McCabe.
We are almost a month into the General Assembly session, and so it's time to begin to bring monthly legislative updates to the board. This evening, Mr. O'Neill is providing a list of all education bills being tracked early in the session. President Whistler and Vice President Dorsey actively participate in the MABE Legislative Committee, so this is also an opportunity for the board to have any discussion on any key bills being addressed by MABE. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. And I would say there's some key dates to the process on the screen dates that occur in the 90-day General Assembly. We're still, it's a month in, but we're still early actually. And so I would just say that to me procedurally, a very key date is that March 23rd date. That's what we typically call crossover day. And a bill needs to have crossed from one chamber to the other by March 23 for it to have a mostly viable chance of being passed during the General Assembly. So this list of over 200 bills that you have in front of you becomes fewer after crossover date, and it's also an opportunity for me to have the time to then organize what right now in front of you is just a list of bills in numerical order of the bill number. and sort of put it into a structure by category, like curriculum or transportation or human resources, so forth and so on. So it gets a little bit easier to follow at that point. Dr. McCabe mentioned Mr. Whistler and Dr. Dorsey being on the MABE committee, Dr. McCabe also on the PZAM legislative committee and meetings, so everyone on the dais very actively involved. So with that, I think what I would do is just stop myself and say to the three of you who are so involved either with MABE or PZAM, if there's anything you want to highlight, please feel free, or if you have a question, I'll do my best to answer an early question.
Colleagues, you had a chance to look over the list. Are there any questions or concerns about certain bills that you'd like feedback on, Dr. Dorsey?
No, none that I'd like feedback on at this time, but it's just that this is more comprehensive certainly than the ones we looked at our last meeting. So thanks for providing all of them. And I guess once we meet on Monday, maybe additional ones will be brought up to be considered. Or I guess
Sure.
it's Tuesday maybe that we meet again.
So
Yeah.
for the sake of folks, what Dr. Dorsey is referring to, just so that it can be managed, because otherwise it would be unmanageable, I think. Both PZAM and MABE tend to take an approach at their meetings of addressing the bills that are going to be heard in the very near future, bills with a hearing date from the day of the meeting until the next meeting. And so it's not a list necessarily of 200 bills, it's 10 or 20 that are on the docket to have a committee hearing. So this is everything, Dr. Dorsey, being tracked. It's not grouped by or sorted by the hearing dates.
Yeah, and if I can encourage the public, there's a very excellent website I encourage you to visit. It's mabe.org, M as in Michael, ABE.org. That's the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. On their site, they have a legislative link that you can click, and you can actually see the positions that MABE is taking on various education-related bills in the state legislature. Dr. Dorsey and I have a vote in how MABE approaches those things, and at least for me, my concern is local control, making sure we don't put more burdens on our school system. But it's a very excellent website to go to see the position that MABE has when our lobbyist at MABE goes to address these issues before the Maryland House of Delegates or the Maryland Senate. If you see a position on MABE, it may or may not necessarily reflect our position, because again, we have one of 24 votes statewide on that committee. But it's a very, very excellent website to visit to stay in touch with those education-related bills.
I think it's /advocacy.
Yeah, mabe.org/advocacy.
President Whistler, and the narrative, which is just above what's on the screen, what I'll do tomorrow is add the hyperlink, and where MABE is in the narrative, I'll add the hyperlink directly to advocacy, and I'll do the same for PZAM's advocacy site as well. People who open this document can go right.
Really appreciate that. And again, remember, if a position by MABE is one thing, it may or may not necessarily reflect our board's position, because again, we are one of 24 votes in that body. But please feel free to email us, give us your thoughts, give us your suggestions. Because again, we have a pretty substantial say in our discussions back and forth with our Board of Ed colleagues across the state, and it's just something that I feel very, very important to be a part of, and I'm just glad that my colleague here is there alongside me to do it.
And alongside of MABE, you heard us reference PZAM, and I know that sounds like something that you would see in a Marvel comic book, but it actually stands for the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland, and we look at the bills as they go through too, and we have a lobbyist that works with the lobbyist for MABE, so they work with each other very, very well.
Any other questions or comments related to legislative issues? All right, thank you so much. Now we move into our, look at this, 5:17. We almost made it, Dr. Dorsey. Move into public comment section. Dr. Dorsey.
Okay, public participation. To have an orderly presentation of comments by the public, the following guidelines apply. Number one, speakers with a connection to CCPS will be allowed to address the board for the allotted 3 minutes. Only those speakers that have registered online and have been notified by the communications department will be permitted to speak. Priority will be given to those citizens that are addressing the board about an item on the current agenda. Citizens not appearing in person for public comment can write to the board through email or U.S. mail. Number 2, public participation is not intended to be a question and answer session. However, if citizens have specific questions, the superintendent will assign a staff member to make contact during the board meeting to arrange a time to respond to questions. Number 3, the superintendent/board reserve the right to correct misinformation presented as factual after the conclusion of the public participation period. Number 4, statements to the board should relate to a recent agenda item, an agenda item that is expected to appear in the future, or a matter of general policy over which the board has authority. Personnel matters, pending appeals, the actions or statements of individual staff, or items related to employee negotiations are not appropriate topics and may not be discussed. Number 5, the board has scheduled time on the agenda for public participation at approximately 5:15 p.m. The board reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on a particular topic so that all topics will be addressed. Additionally, the board retains the discretion to allow additional speakers as it deems appropriate. The board is allowing no more than an hour for public participation. Number 6, comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. All comments should be directed to the board members at the dais. Citizens may only address the board with their individual comments. Citizens may not stand in for another person or group and read their comments. When the allotted time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence. Citizens may leave any handouts for board members on the table at the back of the boardroom. Please do not approach the dais. Additionally, the public may not display signs or posters during the board meeting. In lieu of signs, or if you are unable to complete your comments in the allotted time, individuals are encouraged to submit remarks to the board in writing. And finally, number 7, those seated in the audience are asked to be respectful of the speaker and refrain from commenting to the speaker or to the board members. So with that, we will move to our speakers for the evening, beginning with Lisa Massano.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Massano, and I have 3 children in CCPS. I'm also a candidate for the Board of Education. I have been thinking about the CCPS and Carroll County budgets lately and looking into their fund balances. It has occurred to me that there may be 2 double standards at play. Both the county and the school system are facing increased costs in this high inflation environment, but it seems that the burden of addressing those increasing costs has fallen disproportionately on the school system. CCPS is asked to continually cut and figure out a way to make do. As part of our county, CCPS deserves to meet its rising costs just like the rest of the county. The second potential double standard is that fund balances are intended to be for one-time costs. However, it seems that only the county gets to actually do that. Since 2018, CCPS has essentially been using one-time funds for ongoing expected facilities maintenance after being forced to remove that item from its operating budget as a cost savings measure. The county, on the other hand, is reluctant to use their fund balance for schools. The depleted CCPS fund balance further demonstrates that our schools have stretched their available dollars as far as they can go to keep the doors open and the lights on. In contrast, the county has maintained a healthier fund balance and created a new reserve fund last year. Over the past 5 years, the fund balance has kept up in proportion to the increased county expenditures. I understand that we are not to view the county fund balance as a pot to pull from for ongoing expenses. But I ask, are we at the point when the county needs to put more into the schools, acknowledging that means that we will have less left over to go into the fund balance. We need a long-term plan for the school system because we're stuck in this pattern of just trying to survive every year. We can't keep cutting our way to a balanced budget without painful consequences to our schools and a failure to meet community expectations. Constituents and the commissioners need to understand the situation that CCPS is in. We can ask for one-time funds to meet the technology and facilities maintenance needs of our schools, but what we really need is ongoing funding for those things. It's time that the county have real, honest discussions about what the needs of the schools are and what we want our schools to be like going forward. It's a brave choice to begin that discussion by asking for what the schools need. However, the longer we put it off, the more dire the situation gets. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Owen Hughes.
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Owen Hughes, and I'm a current high school student here today to share my thoughts and opinions with the board regarding student representative voting rights. I find it difficult to understand why the student representative on the Board of Education does not have voting rights. This position requires a year of shadowing the current student representative before officially serving in the role during one's junior or senior year. Despite this preparation and responsibility, the student representative is denied a vote. The Board of Education exists to serve the students. Our school system operates because of the students, and decisions made by this board directly impact our daily lives and futures. Is it not concerning that one individual selected to represent the student body is excluded from having a formal voice in decision-making? CCPS staff emphasize preparing students to become more responsible and college and career-ready adults. However, limiting the students' representatives' ability to participate fully in Board of Education decisions contradicts that goal. If students are encouraged to become engaged citizens, why is their role on the Board of Education structured in a way that allows input but withholds voting power? On March 3rd, 1981, an article was released under the title of "Teen Wants Her School Board Vote to Count." October 20th, 2000, time to start putting students first. February 11th, 2006, student rep seeks partial voting rights. April 13th, 2006, school board says no to student vote. September 24th, 2009, student pushes board for vote. November 12th, 2009, many support student rep vote. It is time to evolve from 1973, when the first recorded student representative was elected, and now recognize the value of authentic student representation. This is not just your education, it is ours. Students deserve not only a seat at the table, but a voice that truly counts. Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Our next speaker is Josie Walsh.
Hello, members of the Board of Education and Superintendent McCabe. My name is Josie Walsh. I'm in 4th grade and I go to Mount Airy Elementary School. In 2 years, I will be in middle school. I want the chance to go to outdoor school. I think cutting outdoor school would be unhealthy because at home, most people go on screens in their free time. I have friends who go on their screens more than 5 hours a day. But at outdoor school, you are not allowed to have devices at all. You don't sit at a desk all day, so you get plenty of exercise. I have friends who don't have big yards or places they can go to play outside and get their exercise. I think outdoor school is a great place to get a taste of what it's like to do that. My brothers and their classmates enjoyed going to outdoor school. They played fun games and they also learned about the ecosystem and other things about nature. High school students also get the chance to be counselors. This gives them a chance to help their community. Everyone who goes to outdoor school gets the chance to be with friends and make new ones. I think outdoor school is a very healthy and a great learning opportunity, so please do not cut it. Thank you.
Thanks, Josie. Our next speaker is Sharon Wilhide.
That's a hard act to follow. I don't know you, but I'm very proud. It says something when our children are coming up and speaking, and I know there was an amazing speaker last month also, and I think it really says something when the kids are stepping forward to show you what your job is. So your job as the Board of Education is to be the biggest advocate for our school system, is to be the biggest advocate for our students, for our teachers, for our community. Your role as the Board of Ed is a liaison between the community and the school system. You were elected to that role. It's obvious that the community wants outdoor school. The community is tired of cuts. The community is tired of cutting outdoor school, instrumental music, athletics, firing teachers, closing schools in the summer, reducing materials for instruction that are already limited and strained. The fact that your discussion last month was, well, should we ask the commissioners for more money is extremely disheartening. Your job, again, advocate for our school system, which means without a doubt you should be asking the commissioners, and it should be 5 out of 5 of you voting, 6 out of 6 of you really, if you include the student representative, voting for asking for additional funding from the county. They have the money. We know that. If you follow the commissioners, any of their meetings, they keep creating extra fund balances and extra savings accounts for rainy days. It's a rainy day. It's been pouring for quite some time. We need the money. You need to ask for the money. Maintenance of effort, I know everyone talks about MOE. It's a formula based on enrollment, and I understand that it's a mathematical formula. The point of MOE is to maintain the school system functioning as it is. It is to not have cuts every year. That was why the MOE was established, to make sure that school systems maintain the programs that they currently offer to ensure success for the students that are enrolled in that school system. There's a bill, and I was hoping that it would be discussed, but it wasn't. There is a bill in the House about the MOE and adjusting it for inflation. I hope it goes forward because inflation is everywhere. The county commissioners are feeling the inflation. We're feeling the inflation. Just because of that, you should not be cutting programs, cutting teachers, cutting things that obviously our community values. I wanted to end on, I love reading. Last week was my birthday, and I got a book for my birthday. I love Walt Disney. I've always loved Disney, and I know not everyone is a huge fan of Disney, but I think everyone can agree that Disney is probably one of the most intelligent financial decision makers of all time. According to Walt Disney, and I brought my book as my source because as an educator, I always use my source. School-age youngsters are capable of absorbing and retaining a tremendous amount of learning. Given the chance, they have an amazing aptitude for knowledge. We must not deny them that chance through shortages of classrooms and inadequate educational facilities. Having spent most of my life creating material for children and observing their potential, I feel convinced that a full-time education for our youth is our best investment in the future.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Joshua Wilhide.
I need a taller podium. I'm here to talk to you about two main things today. Hopefully I can get through it in the 3 minutes that I have. First, I want to discuss some of the policies that you guys put forth. I'm concerned about censorship from the public. First thing is the timing of this meeting. It starts at 4 o'clock. Buses haven't even completely dropped off by the time 4 o'clock starts. Teachers that want to come to the meeting can't because they're on bus duty. Parents that need to get their kids off the bus can't come to the beginning of the meeting because it starts at 4 o'clock. This needs to be pushed back. The other plus thing is that we limit it to only 15 people per session that we have speakers. If 30 parents want to line up and have a talk, I think it's your responsibility to hear all 30 of us line up and talk. You made it clear in your December meeting by having 30 plus failed votes that you do not respect each other's time. So why should we as the public be expected to respect your time too? You need to ensure that that policy is changed and that every voice is heard. Finally, you say that if you have more than 15 people, they can submit a comment. Those comments are very difficult to find on the website. There is no reason why we can't do something simple, like at the end of this YouTube video, have all the posted comments just on a PowerPoint go through. That way, I click on one link and I can see everything that the public is saying, all of the 15 speakers, plus the public comment. These are not instrumental changes, but they ensure that you're having transparency for us and our schools and our parents. Watching you guys have a 30-plus failed vote tells me that the priorities of forcing our kids is not in your best interest. Your best interest is self-promotion, and I find that very, very frustrating as a parent to watch. One of the other things that I'm seeing is that a lot of the elected officials in Carroll County are blocking constituents of dissent on their public Facebook pages. I really need you guys to go back and kind of realize Hogan got sued and the ACLU won by Hogan blocking constituents on Facebook. I know a lot of the board members up there do block constituents on Facebook, and I mind you that you're exposing yourself to lawsuits. The other thing is not having a voice of the students. Owen and the other students are standing up and speaking for themselves. We should absolutely have a vote from our student member on there. It should be a 6-person vote, not a 5-person vote. It is their future. It is important for them. Finally, I want to make sure that I touch on the budget. One thing, it is not your job to worry about the county budget. The county budget people get paid a lot more money. The highest county paid employee is actually in the budget office, making well over $200,000. Let them figure it out. Your responsibility is to make the ask. Done. Period. And then finally, I need to stop hearing that we're not being fiscally responsible for spending money for our schools. Our schools are an investment. By saying things like, oh, it's not fiscally responsible, it's the same thing as saying, well, not contributing to my retirement is fiscally responsible because of the return investment on our schools.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker, Diana Bergman.
Greetings, board members. I'm testifying today not as a candidate. I'm Diana Bergman, a mother of 2 students who attend Carroll County Public School. It's been a very busy month so far. I have observed multiple LEAs discussing concerns regarding the upcoming school budget. For school districts across Maryland, some school districts... Why is there music playing? Some school districts are trying to extend their arts educational programs beyond 2027 school year by amending the blueprint. Others are struggling to hire school psychologists and school counselors. Here in Carroll County Public Schools, the bottom line is that the school board members need to demand that the commissioners fund our school system. It makes absolutely no sense with the maintenance of efforts in place that we continue to cut and decrease the needed budget. It's an election year, and some will say that any current candidate or incumbent suggesting to eliminate the outdoor school will be committing political suicide. Safety should always be our top priority. Any suggestion to cut funding for our maintenance and our operating budget can compromise our safety and security, such as a deduction in the budget could mean a delay on fixing exterior locks, updating security cameras, and also overall maintenance of aging mechanics within the schoolhouse, such as the boilers, the HVAC system, and maintaining electrical equipment. Again, I would look at the savings of leasing laptops versus purchasing laptops because it's more efficient and affordable to lease than purchase laptops. Review which possible outdated operational practices are unnecessary expenses instead of denying access to curriculum activities that encourages creativity, promotes the ability to improve critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills by creating opportunities for real-life skills. We need to ask more from our state representatives and their portion of what they contribute. Some of our aging school facilities do qualify to receive a larger percentage for capital improvement projects from the state than the county has to put forward. Other things that we have to think about too is having competitive pay for our educators and supporting staff in education. We cannot continue to kick down promises that were promised to our educators on how we pay them and how we support them. And that includes supporting staff in each of our schoolhouses. They provide additional enrichment opportunities for our students. So we should be making sure that we could offer that competitive pay. Other than that, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, good evening, and you enjoy your happy Valentine's Day. It's full of love. Love is important, and we should be loving all our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Jessica Dean Murphy.
Good evening. I am Dr. J.D. Murphy, and I stand before you tonight not only as a parent of 3 CCPS students, but also a proud Century High School graduate. Professionally, I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner, and I represent the entire state of Maryland's over 200 pediatric nurse practitioners as the chair of our local chapter or state chapter of the National Association of Pediatric Nurse Practitioners. I'm here to speak on the importance of music programs and the potential consequences of their removal due to budgetary matters. Music education plays a crucial role in child development. Studies consistently show that engaging with music enhances cognitive abilities, sorry, I lost my train of thought, cognitive abilities, emotional intelligence, and social skills. By participating in music programs, children learn to express themselves creatively, which is essential for their overall emotional health. Research has also indicated that children involved in music education often perform better in subjects like math and reading than their peers. Learning to read music and understand rhythm helps with pattern recognition, and children develop analytical thinking skills that are essential in our ever-evolving world. As a former participant in these programs, I can personally attest to how they fostered my love for learning, provided me with a foundation for teamwork, discipline, and commitment, and these qualities have served me well in my career. Starting in 4th grade clarinet lessons at Freedom Elementary, then 5th grade at Steadfed, then as we talked middle school, all-county band, and in high school, all-county and all-state chorus for myself. Before I started with these, my heavy involvement in these music programs, I was a mediocre student. I was in the bottom of my class, but I was never the one that was considered for gifted and talented programs. And then throughout my 4th and 5th grade, my teachers noticed a big change. By 6th grade, I was moved up 2 classes, and by 7th grade, I was scoring above and beyond in standardized testing. I don't think I would have ended up with a doctorate from Johns Hopkins University without that foundation from 4th grade clarinet lessons. So thank you to Mr. Heiner. Moreover, music education offers profound emotional benefits, and it serves as an outlet for self-expression and helps children manage stress and anxiety. In my role as a PNP, I've seen how creative outlets can aid in emotional regulation for children, and being involved gives them a safe space to explore their feelings. When we're continuing to have this pediatric mental health crisis, this impact cannot be understated from providers like myself. So removing these vital programs for the sake of saving money risks depriving our children of these important developmental opportunities. And if our goal is to have the best and the brightest students and help them become successful adults, removing these programs is the antithesis of that goal. So I urge you to consider the far-reaching implications of removing elementary music programs in Carroll County. And let's not underestimate the power of music education and how it can shape well-rounded, capable individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cleveland Friday.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Cleveland Friday. I am also a candidate for Carroll County Public Schools Board of Education. I came tonight to discuss our children getting a great education while we are still being physically responsible. 3 of my older kids went through Carroll County Public Schools. I currently have an 11-year-old who is attending Sandy Mount Elementary School. I truly believe that my older girls are where they are today because of the education that they got from Carroll County Public Schools. I have friends of mine who their children have attended Baltimore County and Baltimore City, and they simply were not on the same level. I think by what we've seen from some of the speakers tonight, Carroll County parents are very passionate about their children, and they're definitely very passionate about the budget that we have to work with. What you're doing is not easy, and it's never going to be easy because no matter what direction you take, There's always going to be someone that believes that you did not do enough or you did not do something correctly. Ultimately, we have to find a way to provide the best possible education for our children because they are the future. But we also have to find a way to ensure that we do it responsibly. We cannot spend every single dollar that we have just in the hopes of trying to make every parent happy. We have to be very strategic on how we spend that money. We have to spend that money in a manner that gives our children the best possible education that they can, whether that is through technology or outdoor school. 2 of my older girls went through outdoor school, and they loved it. My youngest daughter is hoping to go to outdoor school. And I do know that $1.2 million in our budget, it's a lot of money. And there's the possibility that outdoor school may not be there forever. But again, we just have to figure out, and I applaud you for what you've done so far, but we have to figure out how to be physically responsible and still ensure that Carroll County students get the best possible education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shannon Hinkhouse.
Good evening, board members and Dr. McCabe. My name is Shannon Hinkhouse, and I'm running for the Board of Education in Carroll County. I spoke last month, but I wanted to reiterate my thoughts on the fiscal year 27 budget. Due to blueprint mandates, which were accompanied by a great deal of funding, in fiscal year 24, we added 124 FTEs for compensatory education, 8 middle school career coaches, and 12 pre-K teachers for a total of 144 FTEs. I know Blueprint is extremely complicated, and this is all new to everyone, and I am personally digging into the legislation to understand it better. My point is, it seems to me that if we are able to reduce some positions to compensate for a decline in enrollment, and knowing that those staff members will have the opportunity to pick up another position within CCPS, we are obligated to recognize those savings. Secondly, I firmly believe that a base school includes instrumental music in grades 3 through 5 and absolutely includes high school sports. It seems everyone agrees, and I'm happy to see that. I am 100% on board with keeping outdoor school. I have heard some people saying that we need it more than ever with our kids just addicted to screens, and I couldn't agree more. That leads me to my final point on technology in the classroom. I hope we can recognize some savings if we remove the one-to-one laptops from grades 3 through 5, and 6 to 8 would be great too. But if we don't, we still need to back off the screens in the classroom. I was glad to hear some good discussion at the budget work session. Dr. Malvo relayed to us that as a college professor, he has seen a decline in student ability. I read an article lately entitled, "We Gave Students Laptops and Took Away Their Brains" by neuroscientist Jared Cooney Horvath. It seems true. Mr. Horvath writes, "While these devices make it easier for teachers to collect assignments and generate reports, they have been shown to significantly undermine student learning. Administrative convenience should never come at the cost of cognitive development." I know you may be worried about how our students perform on the state tests. I am more concerned that the students won't actually know the material we need them to know. And I truly believe they can get the computer exposure needed in sessions dedicated to test prep during media or using the laptop carts occasionally. I would volunteer in the classroom to help with testing if students need help and they need people to rotate and assist the kids, and I'm sure other parents would volunteer as well. This is that important, and I urge you to vote to remove the funding for one-to-one laptops from grades 3 through 8 from the budget. Thank you for all your hard work. Like Cleveland said, it's not a fun job. You're never going to make everybody happy, but I know you're doing your best. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lori Schwartz-Reichel.
Hello again. My name is Dr. Lori Schwartz-Reichel. I'm the proud parent of 2 elementary school students. I'm also an educator. I spoke at the January 29th board meeting about our shared belief in a comprehensive education, one that values music alongside every other subject because of its power to build confidence and belonging in children. I return today to again advocate against the elimination of elementary instrumental music and chorus for this budget and beyond, not only as a parent, but through the lens of an educator. Research consistently shows that students involved in music ensembles perform significantly higher academically. For example, even scoring over 100 points higher on the SAT than peers. Students who study music beginning in elementary school through high school can be nearly a full academic year ahead in subjects like English, math, and science, helping them to be even more college and career ready. I know this from research, but I also know this from experience as a music educator and as the daughter of a lifelong music educator. For nearly 50 years, I have observed music teachers justify the importance of the work they do. Recently, I asked my 4th grade daughter if she wanted to speak today. She declined. She said she'd rather sing for you or play her saxophone or piano. Instead, we talked about what it would mean if elementary instrumental music and chorus were eliminated. Her first response was not about herself. Instead, she asked, "So Mrs. Passon would lose her job?" She was worried about her teacher. Then she realized she wouldn't be able to play saxophone in 5th grade. She said, "Well, Mom, you can just teach me." Yes, I can, but what about the students whose families can't? What about families who can't afford private lessons? What about students who rely on school as their only access point to music? And what about the educators whose livelihoods depend on these programs? My daughter was also upset that chorus could disappear next year and that her 2nd grade brother might have to wait until middle school to join the band or orchestra. By 6th grade, with all the pressures of that transition, will students even choose to begin music? I taught middle school for 15 years and now lead a confidence camp for that age. I know firsthand how critical those years are for shaping identity and self-esteem. That's why I'm here. Rather than eliminating music, I propose strengthening it. Let's schedule music ensemble classes every day, just as our neighboring county does, a district that leads in the placement of all state musicians, with students earning college scholarships for that distinction alone. When we eliminate elementary programs, the ripple effect impacts middle and high school. The excellence we want begins in middle school. When we eliminate music programs, we eliminate teachers. And we risk losing contributing families who may seek educational options
And
elsewhere.
please finish your thought.
Thank you for your leadership.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Our next speaker, Randy Linville.
Good evening. I got 3 things. First, the communication between us is broken. We speak often here, and we speak in frustration. You appear to listen, and then you vote without addressing any of the things we bring up. There's no explanation, no context, no acknowledgement of the concerns we spend our time voicing. Then we have to wait a month to respond to the vote that occurred last month, where we never heard an explanation, and then the cycle repeats. You guys are more opaque than NSA. I request you improve your sharing of your thoughts on what we bring to you and our concerns that we voice. Old business, the ICE policy. This is my 1-month delayed response to your unanimous vote on the ICE policy, a vote taken with no discussion of the concerns that we presented to you. You repeatedly told the public you were simply following the OAG guidance, yet the OAG's immigration guidance for Bill 1222 uses the word consent 14 times, almost always to clarify when non-consent should be stated. The policy you passed, again, unanimously without addressing any of the concerns that we identified, your policy that you passed uses the word consent 0 times. Not once does it state when consent is to be withheld and when non-consent is to be stated. despite that being a core protection in the state guidance you claim to have been following. This omission is not a minor oversight. It was blatant dishonesty and, I believe, legal negligence. Why are you here if not to protect the schools? New business, funding. The question is, why are you here? A correct answer would be to keep our schools excellent. You serve in an executive role. Your job isn't to shrug and blame the state. It's to maintain and improve our school system and fight for the resources required to do that. If you need more money, say it, explain it, defend it. Show the community what's driving those costs and why those costs matter for our kids. Cutting beloved programs, walking back commitments to teachers, and shrinking students' opportunities is not maintaining excellence. Carroll County didn't elect you to manage a controlled decline in the school system. You know you're not cutting fat from the budget, you're cutting muscle and bone. You're preparing a list of which programs, promises, and opportunities you're willing to sacrifice. Was that really your aspiration when you ran for this office? Each and every one of you should be the loudest and most passionate champions for getting the necessary funding to maintain the school's excellence. Carroll County elected you to defend our schools.
Finish your thought, please. Thank you.
Advocate for what they need and make the case for adequate funding. That is the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Hoyd.
Hello, my name is Mary Hoy. I am the live materials person for Carroll County Elementary Schools. My job is to take living materials into classrooms for teachers and kids to use. As you might realize, I am not for closing outdoor school. I am a great supporter of the program. And I'd first like to talk about liability, because that was brought up at the last board meeting. At the last board meeting, the discussion relied on what if instead of what has happened. The perception is that activities are dangerous, but without data. Historically, year after year, outdoor school has significantly fewer emergency calls and insurance claims than other schools. Perception and reality are very different. There is much training, internal and external security, and infrastructure in the form of cameras, alarms, signs, gates to ensure student safety and reduce CCPS liability exposure. It's not unusual to observe a police vehicle cruising the property, keeping us safe. I venture to say that students are safer at outdoor school than they are in their own neighborhoods. It has been suggested that outdoor school be replicated at students' home schools. It's a great idea, but as taxed as teachers are, they're not able to duplicate the experience that kids get at outdoor school. Additionally, school grounds do not have resources such as forest, wetlands, meadows, lakes, ponds, streams, and don't forget the mountain of trash. Outdoor school gives students an opportunity to be in an even playing field with 3 good meals a day, appropriate sleep, exercise, and ample time for social development and no screen time. There's a push for independence and getting along with others, which are dire skills for the future. Outdoor school is a tradition. It was introduced in Carroll County in 1976. This means grandparents can talk to their grandchildren about their shared experiences at outdoor school. This year's outdoor school's 50th anniversary. And what do we have to celebrate? Keeping outdoor school signals that Carroll County values the whole child education, not just test scores and budget sheets. It communicates to families that Carroll County is committed to preparing students for real life, not just classroom exams. This is something to be proud of. Outdoor education and being in nature is associated with reduced stress and higher overall well-being in children, outcomes that are especially important in the post-COVID screen time-focused world. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Aaron Miller.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent McCabe. My name is Aaron Miller, and I'm the parent of 2 children in Carroll County Public Schools, a 4th grade son who is currently in band and looking forward to outdoor school, and a 1st grade daughter who is already excited for the day she gets to participate in both. I'm here tonight because we cannot continue down a path where valuable programs are the first things considered for cuts. Outdoor school and elementary music programs are not expendable. They're essential parts of a well-rounded education, and they deserve to be prioritized and protected. My 4th grader plays the clarinet in band. Through band, he's learning discipline because progress requires daily practice. He's learning perseverance because improvement takes time. He's learning teamwork because every section depends on the others. And perhaps most importantly, he's gaining confidence. When he masters a piece he once struggled with, you can see that growth. That confidence carries into his classroom and to how he approaches challenges. Music doesn't take away from academics, it strengthens them. Outdoor school provides a different yet equally powerful experience. It brings science to life. Students don't just read about ecosystems, they walk through them. They don't just memorize terms, they observe, question, and explore. The lessons stay with them because they're experienced firsthand and connected to the real world. But beyond academics, outdoor school builds independence and resilience. For many students, it's their first extended time away from home. They learn responsibility. They learn adaptability. They learn to support one another. They learn problem solving in real time. These are lessons that cannot be replicated by a worksheet or a screen. My 1st grader, she's watching all of this. She sees her brother practice. She hears him talk about outdoor school and is already waiting for her turn. These programs create aspiration. They give students meaningful milestones that define their elementary years and help shape how they see school. If we say we value the whole child, then our funding decisions must reflect that. These programs cannot be protected in words alone. They must be secured in the budget. Stable, reliable funding must be firmly committed so outdoor school and elementary band are not revisited year after year as potential cuts or bargaining tools. Outdoor school and elementary music programs are not luxuries. They're foundational experiences, and it's the board's responsibility to make that clear, to advocate strongly and publicly for appropriate funding so these programs are protected. Each time they're threatened with cuts, we send a message that they're optional. They're not optional. I urge you to advocate clearly and publicly for the funding necessary to sustain these programs fully and permanently. Please stand up for them and secure the funding necessary to ensure they continue. They deserve.
Would you please finish your thought?
Certainly. Our children deserve more than the bare minimum. They deserve an education that inspires them, challenges them, and prepares them to grow into confident, capable adults. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Celia Anthony.
Good evening. My name is Celia Anthony, and I'm a senior at Century High School. I'm here to speak on the preservation of outdoor school. Since 1976, the Carroll County Outdoor School has been a highly acclaimed environmental education program. As a participating 6th grader, 3-time former counselor, and former intern, I've seen this firsthand. For 1 week, 6th graders from across the county come to learn about local ecology, sustainable habits, and completing environmental action projects. Along with my fellow counselors and as an intern, I supported and mentored students as they lived, ate, and explored together. We waded through streams looking for aquatic invertebrates, listened for owls and roasted marshmallows on night activities, and challenged ourselves to reduce food waste at meals. We studied stream and watershed health, local habitats, and ecosystem population balances. Every week at Outdoor School culminates with a wildlife simulation, a huge interactive game where students role-play as different animals in an ecosystem, trying to find food and water, tag other players, and survive until the end. As a middle schooler, Outdoor School helped me realize my passion for environmental studies, in which I now intend to major. And as an intern, I was able to pass that enthusiasm onto a new generation of sixth graders and gain valuable experience in environmental outreach. However, by refusing to ask the county commissioners for more funding, the Board of Education would effectively shut down outdoor school after 50 years of impact. It is an unfortunate irony that instead of celebrating outdoor school's existence for half a century, you're considering its termination. As per the 2024 Executive Order, the Maryland Outdoor Learning Partnership, the administration under Governor Moore is looking to increase environmental education in public schools statewide. The requirements they've set are perfectly funded by outdoor schools' existing curriculum. Taking away outdoor school would mean that environmental education curriculum would be squeezed into in-class lessons. Students would have fewer opportunities to learn about environmental programs and how to take action. Less students would develop interest in these crucial subjects, leading to less careers and less adult awareness. Furthermore, through outdoor school, students also learn leadership, teamwork, and self-reliance skills in a real-world situation. The lack of an experiential learning program for incoming sixth graders could contribute to the loss of these skills in our students. Our community knows this. A local petition circling Carroll County, Save Outdoor School, reached 13,000 signatures today. Your constituents care deeply about this issue. Many of them have attended outdoor school as children, with some now sending their own children there. Outdoor school has impacted their lives in countless ways. Refusing to request more funding from the county commissioners would place the educational burden on them, the students and families of CCPS. Outdoor school's contributions to increasing environmental literacy in Carroll County cannot be overlooked. This is why it is a non-negotiable element of the CCPS curriculum. If it is already in place, it shouldn't be taken away. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Julie Walsh.
Hello, members of the Board of Education and Superintendent McCabe. My name is Julie Walsh, and I am a parent of 5 children in 4 Carroll County Public Schools, including that lovely 4th grader. And I am also a candidate for the Board of Education. I wanted to start by telling you why I have chosen public schools for my children. I happen to have dozens of very lovely, wonderful friends who homeschool and who send their children to private schools. I respect those choices, and I think they're fabulous options for a lot of families. But the reason I chose public schools is because I want to be connected to my community, and I want to participate in improving the prospects of my children's peers. I have been volunteering in the schools for 10 years, ever since my oldest started. And I just wanted to tell you what a delight it is to see kids who would not otherwise be able to afford it be able to learn to play an instrument. It is a delight, as you know, because you have attended these things, to go to that 4th grade concert and hear all the squeaky string instruments, to hear the kids come together as they start to sing together, to see the thrill on their faces. It is a delight. I love getting to know my children's friends and to see them learn and grow. I love seeing the excitement as they prepare to go to outdoor school and they worry if they've packed the right things. And I love to see the thrill and the delight and the relief when they get home after having a fabulous time, a time that was not just fun, but that was a building up, like an improvement of their experience as students, and something that has given them a boost. I delight in these things, and I know you do too, because you've dedicated your time here, and you have children who've been in the public schools, and you see it too, so I know that. What I want to say is that as a public school parent, I have felt in recent years that we have been in reaction mode. We have been in reaction mode to very real, serious financial constraints. But I think it is time, for the sake of our students, to get ourselves out of reaction mode and into something that feels like a purposeful plan to make sure that our schools are sound and solid and that they are a draw to the families of Carroll County and those who would consider buying homes here. We need to have a positive vision for our future. And part of that is requesting the funds that will establish the financial security to give our school system what it expects, to give the residents of our county what they expect from our schools. I'm not I don't think anyone here is proposing new programs, new outrageous expenses. We want to see our school system solid and sound and built up, and we ask you to do everything in your power to make that possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our speakers for the evening. Thanks, everyone who participated.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey, and thank you, public. We really appreciate your feedback. I know one person said that they insinuated we don't really accept or acknowledge it and talk about it, but we do. I just want to say that the input is so important from the public. Next, we'll move to our employee groups.
Good evening, Superintendent McCabe and members of the Board of Education. I am Cindy Porter, a veteran special education paraprofessional and president of CASE, representing clericals and assistants in Carroll County Public Schools. Last month, Sherry Main, security assistant and CASE secretary, spoke to you about the importance of relevant and meaningful professional learning for the members of our bargaining unit. Thanks to the diligence of the people involved in the collaborative relationship between CASE and Carroll County Public Schools, we have been able to grow and offer intentional professional learning necessary to meet the ever-changing situations and challenges assistants face in our school system. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had different ideas this year, and our professional learning day succumbed to the unprecedented winter weather that blanketed our area with what some have now called snowcrete. While I have already expressed my gratitude in an email, I want to publicly thank all CCPS staff who volunteered to provide all of the sessions we had planned for that day. Your willingness doesn't go unnoticed, and we are very appreciative. And this day wouldn't be possible without the dedication and expertise of Jamie Weaver here in Central Office, whose signature block doesn't even begin to identify all she does for our entire school system. My thank you, while just 2 words, is sincere and filled with much gratitude. We look forward to continuing this relationship to honor the need and desire of the members of our bargaining unit to be able to best serve the students of our school system. And speaking of collaborative relationships, I'm honored to stand here tonight as CASE and CCEA have been recognized by the Carroll County Public Library as nominees for the Light of Carroll Awards. From the CCPL website, these awards honor individuals, organizations, and businesses whose extraordinary kindness, courage, and innovative spirit have advanced literacy and learning throughout Carroll County, Maryland. CCEA and CASE were nominated for our collaborative work in presenting Read Across Maryland each year to support students and their families in our county to foster a love for and an appreciation of the power of literature and literacy skills in our lives. This year's event will be held from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the CCPS Career and Technology Center on March 21st. Look for more information soon. I also want to congratulate the other staff nominees from our school system. We are fortunate to represent and work alongside such dedicated and caring educators. As you may notice this evening, I'm wearing a shirt representing CASE, the Carroll Association of School Employees. While the former logo served our association well for several years, CASE leadership felt it necessary to pursue a refresh. After consultation with members, it became clear that it was important to acknowledge our heritage as an agricultural county represented by the unique towns that make Carroll County what it is. The other parts of the logo represent the connectedness of those towns, the students who live there and throughout our county, and the connections CASE works diligently to make with our students every day. I have been honored to be president of this association for over 3 years now, and I'm appreciative of the knowledge I have gained during that time, learning more information about the intricacies of our school system as time goes on. A personal mantra of mine for quite some time has been that knowledge is power. I try to approach anything I learn with that mindset, and it has given me a much better understanding of the current situation our school system is facing. At the end of my remarks at the public hearing for the superintendent's proposed budget last month, I ended my remarks by saying that I could honestly say that no one, and I reiterated no one, including myself, wants to close the outdoor school program or make cuts to cherished programs which benefit our students. But I also know that the information I have gained through seeking out facts has shown me that our school system is in a place that many in our communities do not clearly understand. We are coming to a crossroads if we're not there already, where the members of our communities need to understand the ramifications for the priorities they seek for educating the students in our county. Last year, I sat in the audience as a special education paraprofessional in my 26th year, struggling to live on what I make at the top of my salary scale, facing our school system not being able to honor the negotiated agreement for our bargaining unit, and was unbelievably astounded as I listened to a member in our community who passionately spoke about saving our outdoor school program, but readily admitted that she didn't have any idea what the 400 or so instructional assistants or paraprofessionals did in our county to support some of the neediest students in our school system. I would hate to fathom where we would be without myself and the others who show such caring and concern and give our all for the students we work with every day. Currently, I have heard and read comments which say that we just need to cut central office positions and we will be fine. In being a part of the process and attending meetings, I know that couldn't be further from the truth. I have also heard several people mention how kids benefit from being off their technology for a week at outdoor school, for example. Educators in our county have incredibly increased responsibilities beyond the roles of educating students because of the immense needs they come through our doors with every day. Is keeping kids off their technology for a week one of the top priorities to sustain a program at the expense of other crucial educational needs? I say that as I know any of these situations that involve cuts, and especially the outdoor school, also involve members of our case bargaining unit. I'm not making judgments, but I implore those who are speaking out on issues and signing petitions to do so from a place of factual knowledge and a real understanding of the resulting ramifications. Our students are counting on you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. Cindy stole my thunder there on Read Across Maryland, but okay. All right, good afternoon, Superintendent and School Board. I'm Celeste Jordan, President of CCA. I will just bring up again March 21st, Career Tech Center, 9 to noon. It's an event, free reading event. Every child will get a free breakfast and a free book, possibly more than one free book, depending on when you come. All right. Today marks 529 days since educators in the CCA bargaining unit have received a salary increase. I asked CCA members to write postcards to you with the prompt, what I want the Board of Education to know. These postcards, which I see you passing down, represent the voices of Carroll County educators. Educators across the county took a few minutes out of their already full days to write directly to you about their experiences. Not form letters, not talking points, their real stories in their own words. I'm going to share just a few publicly. Quote, I love seeing joy in my students when they make progress on their communication goals. End quote. Another quote, the current workload is unsustainable. I need time outside of school to be a mother, daughter, wife, friend, and volunteer. From another educator, I can be a really great teacher or I can be a really great data collector, but I can't be both. Take some stuff off our plates, please. And another, my final quote, the demands or the pacing required to make it through the curriculum does not provide enough time to support each student in mastering or retaining content. These are not isolated frustrations. These members are sharing the realities of our workload and the impact it has on staff and students. The postcards that you received are evenly distributed among the 5 Board of Ed members, so you each have a unique set of cards in front of you. I hope you'll take the time to read them and truly listen to what your educators are telling you. More importantly, I hope that you will act on what you read and hear. I appreciate that all 5 board members have accepted the CCA and CASE's invitation to meet with our members on February 25th. Of course, you know that from past years we will separate you all apart so that we do not break any sunshine laws, but you will each be given an opportunity to meet with 2 groups of members, both from CASE and CCA, to just have some honest conversations. Public service carries a significant responsibility, and listening is a fundamental part of that. As President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. As members of this board, that responsibility is yours to advocate for the funding, compensation, and support our students and educators need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jordan. That concludes our public participation portion of our meeting. Next, we will move to action items. Action item 6A, may I have a motion to approve the National School Board Association dues? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Dr. Malvo. Dr. McCabe.
The annual dues to NSBA are before you for board approval this evening. NSBA is the National Professional Organization to which MABE is a state affiliate.
Thank you, Doctor. Is there any discussion related to item 6A? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, may I have a motion to approve our award of bids? So moved by Ms. Battaglia. Second by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. McCabe.
There's only one item on the award of bids this evening, a replacement generator at Winters Mill High School, which was purchased under emergency procurement. Any questions?
That's a big price tag.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Any questions by colleagues? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of item 6B say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have our approval of budgets. I think we have to approve those individually, if I'm not mistaken. May I have a motion to approve our operating budget? So moved by Dr. Malvo. May I have a second? I'll second. Dr. McCabe.
Board members, we have been on this journey of the FY27 operating budget for many, many months now. The board had a summer retreat to establish background and baseline understanding of the operating budget. We have had 2 work sessions before the winter break. On every monthly business agenda in the fall, we had a discussion update on the FY27 operating budget to provide you with emerging information. At the January business meeting, as required by our process, I presented you with a proposed FY27 operating budget. At that time in the process, the budget moves from background detail culminating in my proposed budget to your budget request to the county. Just 2 weeks ago, we had another work session followed by a public hearing on the proposed budget. Tonight is a scheduled date in the process where you, as a board majority, must determine what your FY27 operating budget request to the county will be. By state law, you must submit a request to the county no later than March 1st. And this is the final date we have on the calendar before that deadline. Like me, I know each of you have been grappling with the many challenges. In all of the work sessions and meetings, including the final work session 2 weeks prior, you have discussed those challenges and the pros and cons of each decision. Given our prior decade of budget cuts, these challenges are even more pronounced, as we have discussed. Different ideas have been discussed, but so far, no clear consensus has emerged among the board on what your balanced budget request will be. Like me, you are now confronted with the daunting task of determining what is the right combination of hard choices to arrive at a balanced budget. The approach I took in developing my proposed budget was to try and achieve a balance between making some ongoing budget reductions with a goal of avoiding the core academic classrooms, requesting some one-time funding for specific purposes, and requesting additional ongoing revenue from the county to reach a balanced budget. You must now decide the extent to which you as a board wish to adopt the proposed budget or make any modifications to it as it becomes your budget request to the county. At the last work session, we shared some updates on state revenue.
as the governor's budget was just released, as well as some changes to the one-time funding requests in my proposed budget. Mr. Burke has revised our presentation accordingly, and I'll ask him to share those updates. We also have prepared some additional handouts based on the discussion at the last work session. At the appropriate time in the presentation, we'll reference those handouts. There is one that adds greater detail to clarify the discussion over technology and the budgetary impacts. Another handout clarifies what we mean when we talk about inflationary impacts and how we calculate that as expenditures in the proposed budget. Lastly, we included one slide in the work session presentation that attempted to consider the budget challenges over a 5-year window. We had some discussion on that topic, but I want to make sure we reemphasize that understanding, not just for the board, but all of our system stakeholders and partners at the county need to be aware of what appears to be an ongoing situation. Before asking Mr. Burke and Mr. O'Neill to begin, I also want to note that depending on how much your final budget request deviates from my proposed budget once you achieve a majority, we will likely need to take a recess and then allow staff to formulate the major categorical budget totals to align with your request. As you know, state law requires that you approve the budget by the categorical totals, so we will calculate them and display them on the screen for you. And as a reminder, you will also approve the food service fund budget and the debt service fund budget separately, and we will display those totals as well. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Good evening, board members. As was mentioned, we're going to go through the slide presentation that is very similar to what we presented at the work session with the, and I'll point out the updated information as we go. Oh, are we on or not? That'll work. Turn it on. So, as mentioned in the last presentation, sort of the strategies we're using since we've gotten additional information from the state with the governor's budget, continuing down the path of the reductions that were included in the proposed budget, some additional one-time money being asked from the county, and then the ongoing ask as adjusted. So I'll touch on that briefly. So as we have discussed, the county has a 3% or $7.6 million increase in revenue planned. The proposed budget as it is now includes an additional $5 million for a total of $12.6 million. That's down a bit from what was originally proposed due to the state revenue picture once we got additional information being about $630,000 above our superintendent's proposed budget from January. So this presentation now includes the additional state revenue and the slight reduction in the additional ask from the county. This is the updated breakdown of the portions of revenue from the state. You can see, again, we've mentioned these are some changes driven by formulas in funding and some by the changes in enrollment and student population in the various categories. So as we bring those together, that's an ongoing county revenue request of $12.6 million and an increase in state revenues over the prior fiscal year of $6.5 million, or a total increase of 19.1. This is unchanged from the proposed budget. The increases in operating costs, a few separately identified items there with the what will become the one-time ask for facilities maintenance budget and the technology replacement. So as you can see, 26.5 million in projected expenditure increase over the expected revenues, leading to a deficit in our, as we approach the proposed budget. And as you know, in the superintendent's proposed budget, these reductions in operating costs for eliminating outdoor school, reduction of teacher FTE of about 15, in line with the enrollment decline. The Blueprint TSI program is phased out in fiscal year 27. And then the one-time asks for facility and technology. That brings us back into balance at this point in the proposed budget. These are unchanged additional information relative to the proposed reductions, outdoor school, the teacher FTE. You'll recall the facilities maintenance was increased from $2 million to $3 million to balance out for the stadium lights that were unplanned. The technology device refresh as a one-time component. I know there was some discussion in our work session about this, and this has some different components with what's one-time and what's ongoing. So I think Mr. O'Neill's going to provide a little additional context there.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Burke. This is one of the places where we did want to pause and look at one of the handouts. I don't know if Ms. Bowers can load the technology costs handout, but we did recognize during the work session that we put a lot of information out there, not just during the budget process, but also I think on November 12, I believe it was, you had a work session on technology integration, and there was a lot of information that day as well. One part of that was sort of an assessment of costs, both ongoing and one time, and so, given the amount of discussion we had at the work session and thinking about the overall presentation, and you can only go so far with 3 or 4 bullets on a slide. We wanted to produce some additional background for you and make sure we took the time to try to provide the additional clarification there. One of the first things is, as Mr. Burke just mentioned, the way the superintendent chose to structure the proposed budget, which is your picking up point, your starting point, trying to find that balance between making some reductions, asking the county for more ongoing revenue. She also wanted to try to parse some things out to say, I think reasonably we could ask the county for some one-time revenue, so it's not automatically a long-term commitment for them. And charter school was one. That's now off the table for 27. So the 2 remaining items were facilities and technology. And so I guess the point to be made there, which I heard Rob just make, is if the board makes a decision to cut a student one-to-one ratio at one or more of the 3 grade bands that we've talked about, that reduction in essence would be a reduction of that one-time $1 million request from the superintendent's proposed. So there was a little bit of talk at the work session that maybe sounded to us like, well, if we didn't want to cut outdoor school as a savings, could we cut grades whatever of technology or the ratio instead? And the answer is not easily, because if you said we're going to not have devices one-to-one anymore at grades 3 through 5 next year, that would remove the $1 million one-time ask from the proposed budget. It would not do anything to solve the $1.4 million ongoing need in the ongoing kind of layout of the operating budget. So you'd be reducing the one-time request. You'd need to find something else valued at $1.5 million if you wanted to replace outdoor school. So that was one thing we wanted to make sure we came back and said again or highlighted. And then it's a little more complicated. We try to generalize. We talk about the three grade levels at a time, although the last one's really 4 grade levels. So we wanted to try to spell out, why are we doing that? What does that mean? And sort of the middle section of the handout tries to get at that. In general, the plan since COVID has been that at the 3 benchmark years we discuss is when we would buy a new device for every student. So every student would get a new device when they began third grade. Every student would then again get a new device when they began sixth grade, and then again at ninth grade. And the student hopefully would protect and take care of and carry that device with them 3, 4, 5, and then again 6, 7, 8, and then again 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so the theory of $1 million of reduction is based on that there would be an average of about 2,000 devices at $500 each being purchased each of those times at 3rd, 6th, and 9. So that's your $1 million. But we're still going to have devices. We're not going to not have any devices at 3 through 5, if let's just keep with that example. So there's some cost as well to basically try to revert to the pre-COVID ratios, which we have said in the work session on average would average out to something like 2 to 1 across the system. It's different at each level. It's different at elementary, middle, and high, but we would say it averages out across the system. It's actually higher at elementary. But we need carts, and we need devices for the carts, and we need some loaners. So there's still devices. There's still things to buy that need to then be maintained in an ongoing way. And so the $1 million is the savings of not buying 2,000 kids a new device at, say, 3rd grade. But then the next year and the year after that, that $1 million savings doesn't hold. It becomes less of a savings. And we would estimate by year 2, it's about a $500,000 savings. And so talking about the 5-year kind of look of all of this and trying to expand the view that we've also been working on, just want to be really clear that if the board makes such a decision, you would save approximately $1 million next year, but you're also then committing yourself to find something worth about $500,000 to cut the year after that, and then a little bit more each year till you get to kind of the projected ongoing annual savings for a three grade band kind of structure. So it's a little bit trickier. It's not the same as this isn't about advocating. It's not the same as the cut of an outdoor school program or 15 FTE. If you make those cuts recur forever in time. 15 FTE at 1.3 million is 1.3 million that's permanently gone from the budget. Devices is more like 1 million gone from the budget next year, but not carrying forward after that. So there's that, and then the other thing, which I think we just were able to somewhat mention at the work session that came up at the budget work session on the 29th, that came up back during the November 12 technology integration work session is, and I think Nick gets very nervous of me using the $1.5 million number instead of something a little higher. There would be some initial costs, and they would probably be one-time costs, but there would be some initial one-time costs to make the transition back to the pre-COVID structure methodology of being at a lower ratio. And it's more complicated, and maybe Nick would be a better source, but I just tried to group it into sort of 2 or 3 of the biggest one-time cost items. If we're going to return to how we were, we're going to need to buy new textbook or instructional materials. That's going to be the biggest of the other one-time costs for 3 grade levels across all curricula for 3 grade levels. We're going to have to pay our teaching teams that come in over the summer usually to rewrite curriculum. There's negotiated amounts of pay that they earn for that. And then the same for professional learning, negotiated rates of pay for participating in the professional learning that would go along with it. So in the first year where you might save $1 million out of the operating budget, you're also looking at incurring some initial cost up front to make this transition. So it just felt like I could have done better at the last work session framing all of this out. Wanted to pull this out and put it on its own handout separate from just the slide and kind of make sure maybe you did understand, but make sure that the board had this understanding of what we were trying to say between everything we've said earlier, the November 12th work session and what we've been saying throughout the budget. So this was the first point where we wanted to pause and kind of highlight one thing a little bit more. We'll come back. I'll let Mr. Burke return unless you have questions, and then we'll come back and do a couple more.
Yeah, I have a question. Again, I understand the concept of there's only a limited amount of savings the first year, and then the second year those savings diminish because you have to get laptop carts and you got to do paper. But let's say we don't eliminate the computers, and we got to pay another $1 million next year. I just don't, I'm trying, it's hard for me to understand that, you better not eliminate it because you're going to have costs and it's only diminished the first year. You're still going to have those costs even if you keep it. So I just don't.
Yeah. Well, let's say you eliminate grade 3, because let's just, if it's okay, let's keep using that example. You're still going to be buying for 6 and 9, presumably, but you're not going to be buying for 3 again.
But you're only buying 2/3 then.
Correct. But you are going to replace some portion of the laptops spread across the elementary grade levels, and you're going to eventually have to replace some of the carts and other things that go along with it. So it's not the $1 million every year at that grade band, that those 3 grades together, but there is a cost of replacement. And so eventually we went back, like we used the average of 2 to 1. I think elementary was more around the range of 3 to 1, or maybe even a little bit 3 point something to 1 pre-COVID. So the savings wouldn't be exactly the same at every level, or the cost. We're just trying to do the averages here for the sake of the budget conversation.
Yeah, I definitely understand that it's a diminishing savings as you go. But if you take the other side of the coin, if you keep it, then you still have those big costs next year. Where are we going to get the $1 million next year? So my point is I understand the argument, and I definitely accept the diminishing savings over time. But if you just leave the one-to-one device issues there, you still have that huge cost. And so if your argument is you only save a little, but we still have these big costs next year. So that's just the conundrum that I face with with this theory of you're only going to save a little bit now, but anyway.
Yeah,
I
and
appreciate
if
it.
I sound argumentative, President,
No, you don't.
I'm not intending that. And this is easy to say, but it's not our reality, and I understand that as well. And I'm sort of jumping ahead to another handout that's going to occur later. In an ideal world, and that's not where we sit tonight. We sit tonight on the night where you have to vote on a budget. If the board wanted to make a policy decision in this area, ideally it would be nice to make it in the longer term of time to say, okay, we know we're going to have some one-time cost to transition back. Let's figure out how we could budget that in and what the mechanism would be and plan. Because right now we're out of sync too with the curricular approval timelines and all of that. Not that those things can't somehow happen differently. So there's just the sequencing and understanding of what all would be involved. I'm not meaning to argue. If the board makes that decision, they'll make that decision, and we'll adjust to it and try to sort our way through it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think I would just add here, I think as we sat and thought about this and thought about the last work session, there was a little bit of concern that, did we really put all the numbers out there? And we wanted to make sure that no matter what decision the board makes, that everybody understands what the costs will then be or not be ongoing, and that there wouldn't be any surprises, next year based on these decisions. We can do whichever the board pleases.
Ms. Zimmer?
Am I understanding correctly? It's a little bit farther up on this page, but that it's going to flatline, or it's going to level off rather around 165,000 in savings annually. So there's still going to be a cost of 840,000.
Sure, we were always replacing devices. Yes, so yes, and that's an average. Practically it might be a little different at one 3 grade band than another, but yes, it will level off. There will still be costs. There always were. We would ultimately be saving, I think to Mr. Whistler's point, more than we were at a 3 grade band. We'd also be, I guess to Dr. McKay's point, we feel like it's our job to give information, and when we pause after a meeting and go, maybe we need to touch on all of that again based on a certain conversation. Kind of the big things were it's less ongoing savings than it is in the first year, but it is a permanent reduction too. It's not as if there's no savings in the out years, but just be mindful that if you make this reduction for year 1, it's going to be less in year 2, so you're going to deal with something else in that year, something to fill that void. And there are the one-time costs, which also describe the work needed to get there. So how do we, that's not in our budget. Those one-time costs are not something in the superintendent's proposed budget. So how do we account for that? And how does Nick and his team adjust to a timeline to make all that happen? Does that make sense?
It does. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding exactly what you're saying. So in the first year, it would generate $1 million in savings, but we would also have an upfront cost that exceeds that savings. Am I correct in understanding 1.5 million across 3 grades to purchase the textbooks and to compensate the teachers for the summer? So we would save 1, but it would cost about 1.5. And then after the first year, it's going to phase down to about 500,000. And then ultimately, it would level off at around 165. Am I getting all that right?
Correct. And the
So-
only thing I'd want to add, if I might, is
Please.
where I started at the very top of this handout. It's the savings from the superintendent's request of one-time money.
Yes.
It's not solving the ongoing revenue challenges. It's not $1 million that could be used instead of outdoor school or 15 FTE or ask less of the county. It's just the one-time issue in the budgets.
I understand. And I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I just want to make a quick comment that if this board wants to have a serious conversation about the one-to-one computers, I am completely open to having that conversation. I think it's a conversation that does need to be had. But I think it has to be driven by curriculum and instructional philosophy and not short-term budget relief. When evaluated strictly through the financial lens, I don't think this option makes fiscal sense to be trading computers for other programs because I just don't see the savings there.
Just to echo a comment that Mr. O'Neill had just made about timing. I know it's February and it seems like there's a lot of time between now and the start of next school year, but in reality, there isn't. We work very hard when we revise a curriculum. We want to make sure that we're not forcing our curriculum to meet a material that exists. We revise our curriculum and then we bring in the material component of it all. We're also very conscious of that and flowing that through our established processes, including the curriculum council. So we're I won't say nothing's impossible, but we're venturing into, we would most definitely have to break our established norms on timelines, but we're getting almost to the point where a significant change is going to get even more complex to do it right, because I don't want to rush something, but to do it right is going to take time and a lot of work from folks, and that can be done, but just we're getting close to that difficult period of time.
We're doing a $1 million request from the commissioners for tech. Are we going to do the same thing again next year? I mean, this is my, yeah.
Very likely. And so like when we get to the 5-year vision slide, that's how it's projected there. The alternative would be for that to become ongoing revenue from the commissioners, because where enrollments are and appear to be going, there's going to be less revenue from the state. The only thing that's going to help us at the state is the planned increases to the targeted student enrollment numbers, which, all of this is a general level conversation, but then that's also without considering any other mandates from the state, like when teacher time reappears down the road. So the best picture from the scenario, from the state scenario is not great. So it's either going to be similar requests, or can the county somehow make it whole? And to somebody, maybe it was a speaker said tonight, in 2018, it was our hope and dream that we would reduce the maintenance money, but then someday replace the maintenance money, and it's now almost a decade later, and that never happened.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment?
I was just going to say, one thing I had noticed on some of the PTA and PTO pages is that they're hearing from some of their administrators that they're asking their local school PTOs and PTAs to look at increasing their budgets to help with offset cost of toner and paper, particularly in the elementary age grade, to help with curriculum stuff, because schools are only allowed so much money for that stuff. So that is something that I've kind of seen too, is that administrators are like reaching out to the community already and saying, hey, we're going to need help with these things.
Yeah, I can work back through our school directors just to make sure that we're getting as creative as possible at the school level to solve those problems, because we don't want to put extra burdens. We are very appreciative
Right.
of our PTAs, PTOs, and our boosters, and all those wonderful groups that do a lot for us. But I'll do some work back with my folks just to make sure that we're not asking for something that we could potentially solve here internally.
And to that point, Board Member Battaglia, the slide might still be in this presentation, but the slide of other things that we considered as possible reductions, but that the superintendent didn't elect to include. One was something like reduced materials of instruction, and the conversation, if you go all the way back to, my gosh, maybe the November budget work session or December budget work session, was that would probably be a conversation about the amount of money we provide centrally to each school based on the number of students they have to buy those things you're talking about. It's been cut twice in the amount per pupil that we then give to the schools. It's been cut twice in my 16 years of doing this, and then it was never replenished, or it was never increased in the years where we did see some enrollment growth after we kind of hit the plateau. So that's not a central directive if it's happening, but it's not completely shocking. And also, we have talked about it as a possibility.
Right. No, I mean, particularly, again, if you're looking at cutting the devices, that's something that's going to have to offset.
But we'd have to follow up, because our message would be, we'll provide the core materials. PTAs have supplemented in the past, extra projectors and those
Right.
kinds of things. We would not ask them to fund the basic needs of a school, like paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Malvo, did you have anything?
A lot's happened since I've thought about some things here. I'm still confused in terms of the statement about if we eliminated one-to-one devices for grades 3 through 5, that somehow this would not assist if we wanted to save outdoor school, that $1 million somehow could not be used towards assisting with outdoor school?
Because the way your starting point as a board is the superintendent's proposed budget. And the superintendent's proposed budget is laid out with really 3 moving parts. One, she proposed some ongoing cuts, complete reductions from the ongoing budget. That's outdoor school and the 15 FTE commensurate with enrollment decline. Those would be cuts that would persist forever at those levels. 2, she's proposing to ask the county for now $5 million of additional money. And then 3, she's trying to help take the pressure off the ask for ongoing money from the county and saying, and we'd also like you to give us one-time money of $3 million for facilities maintenance and $1 million for technology refresh. Essentially capital money is what that would mean. So if you said, let's get rid of one-to-one at grade 3, we would then be saying to the county, we're no longer asking for the $1 million in technology capital money, is what that would work. But you'd still need something else to balance out the ongoing revenue expenditures over here. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. It's just, when we get this list and it has it listed as one of the possible cuts, it's just a little confusing that that's, listed. I thought that might be used, but it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Dorsey?
Okay, you stepped in, Mr. O'Neill, to sort of add this additional information, right? So we haven't finished with the presentation by Mr. Burke. I'm ready to jump in and just make some proposals here so we can move forward, but I'll go ahead and ask that we at least finish the presentation.
Happy to sit down, Dr. Dorsey.
Not that I really need you to sit down, but I just wanted to just keep it moving.
Okay, there's not a lot left here. I think we've hit on most of the changes in the proposed budget since last month. So I'll touch on just what's left. Reminder, just kept this in here for information, that at one point the proposed included $4 million for the charter school, with their notice to us that will delay opening by a year. Something to keep in the back of the mind. This
This issue will come back up at proposed budget time next year, and we'll be, refreshing the numbers, but we'll have a better feel for that by then.
Mr. Burke, real
Yes.
quick, I was going to ask if Mr. O'Mealy can go over for the 100th millionth time why the school board, why we cannot not fund, like, why by law we have to do this. Because again, that's a rhetoric we keep hearing is if you're having so much issue, you shouldn't be doing the charter school. Can you please explain one last time for the
Because in
community?
repeated decisions from the Maryland State Board of Education, the lack of funding is not a legitimate basis for turning down a charter school application. A charter school application can be turned down for a number of reasons, but the lack of funding is not one of them. And it stems from the premise that we cannot consider a charter school from a us and them perspective. A charter school is a public charter school. The students attending a charter school are Carroll County Public School students. Whether they were Carroll County Public School students last year is irrelevant. This is the Maryland State Board of Education's interpretation of the public charter school law. And indeed, they rendered a decision just a couple of weeks ago rejecting Baltimore City's public charter school funding formula and saying once again, as it has said many other times, you can't do it this way. You've got to fund in accordance with the public charter school law. Now, the Maryland State Board of Education finally, after 20 years, finally has decided that they will promulgate regulations on charter school funding. I say finally because it's been on a case-by-case basis, all right? And now we will have regulations probably by the end of spring, which will delineate specifically how each LEA is to fund charter schools that are approved for reasons such as we did this year, and how those charter schools will get funded by the local Board of Education. They are a public school.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hopefully, maybe the Carroll County Times will actually do a headline that says charter school required by law. That would be fantastic.
Well, we've had a charter school law since the early 2000s.
Mhm. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Sure. So, as I said, we'll keep that in mind as we head into next year's planning. Just keeping on the slide the other reductions that were considered, discussed at various points through this process, through the workshops, just so that those numbers are consistent for your discussion.
Mr. Burke, if I can if you can go back to the last slide, just to be clear, the superintendent's budget will not eliminate those if we adopt it, correct? I just want to make sure the public is aware of that.
Those were considerations that were not included in the proposed budget, not included in the balanced proposed budget that's for consideration tonight. These would be options for discussion.
Right. Yeah, we see the public putting out a lot of things on social media, you know, they're throwing numbers out there that I think confuse the situation. Some are suggesting we need to add this amount of money to the proposed budget. But again, just to be clear, the superintendent's budget does not eliminate those programs if it's adopted tonight.
Right. As I mentioned, these were things that were discussed, considered, and as we've shared in the workshop and in the hearing, these are items that we believe will continue to be on the forefront of discussion for the next several years if we're heading down a path of enrollment decline and sort of restricted state revenue growth. So that was our point here when we brought it up last month. As we look out over the next 5 years at revenue growth from the county and the state relative to our projected expenditure growth, we see continued challenges going forward. And I think we're going to hit on a few more pieces of that.
We are, and then I'm going to sit down as quickly as possible and let you finish. I'm going to ask Ms. Bowers to load the handout called Five-Year Budget Outlook when it starts with this slide. This isn't something we're going to be able to fully unpack now, but I think starting with the last work session now and into the future, what the superintendent has asked us to do is we need to finish this budget and make very hard choices and decisions, but maybe then elevate this conversation into more of an ongoing conversation about the bigger picture instead of sort of everyone knows that we'll be back to the budget in late November, December, so that's when we'll tune into the budget because this is sort of our rough sketch of what we think we're probably looking at for the next 5 years or so. And again, as a reminder on this slide, some of these are estimates. So like the state revenue on the farthest column to the left after the fiscal years, that's an estimate. It's based on where we see enrollment going, where the hold harmless phase is fully in at the state level, and then also recognizing the fact that in many years the targeted per pupil amounts in the state law go up. So it's not quite as bad in some ways in this instance as like the 10 years of Mr. Guthrie's time because there was no built-in hold harmless and there was no increase automatically in the law for the per pupil. So those were just zeros, but we're thinking the reality's not going to stay at 6.5. It's going to kind of bottom out somewhere around 3. Some other places, these are actuals, like the county plan numbers are the numbers from the county plan, except that the county plan doesn't go out to 32, so I just added 3% for that year because 3% is the number in the county plan for all the other years. Maintenance and technology, Mr. Whistler asked the question, or one of you asked the question a bit ago, where would technology be next year? We're mapping it out here as sort of, at least for now, the superintendent's begun the approach of let's ask for it as capital to try to take some of the burden off the county when they look at ongoing revenue. We have the enduring maintenance issue, which has been on our horizon for a long time, and now with where we've exhausted fund balance too, we don't really have a comfortable mechanism anymore, and so the alternative is to try to ask the county to help with that, at least for a bit, at least for a few years, maybe till perhaps our fund balance gets to a healthier state. Inflation, we're going to talk a lot more about that in a minute based on the conversation last time. So there'll be not just here, but on another handout, so I'll come back to that. Compensation, again, as a reminder from the work session, we wanted a number, and there's no right or wrong, and it's subject to collective bargaining, and all of those things are always in place in the law and in real life. But we wanted a number that we thought many people might consider at least a reasonable discussion point, and so the numbers you see here reflect what would the cost be roughly for a step increment for all employees and a 2% cost of living increase in every year. And so we're just building this to say, here's what we see based on conditions we're seeing at the state and the county level, and then what you see at the end are deficits. And so in other words, we're here every year. You're here every year, or those of you on the Board of Ed in those years are here every year. And the conversations, horrible though they are, about outdoor school, about whatever, for the speaker that referred to it as maybe a tool, not a tool, a reality. Like something's got to give to balance the budget every year. And so it's either programs or new ideas perhaps that other people that emerge, or it's staff. And really at the end of the day, when you reduce a program, the savings is the staff. When we closed schools, the savings was the core staff that no longer needed to exist because the school no longer existed. So it always comes down to staff. We've talked a lot about declining enrollment. One of the reasons that it has kind of accelerated with more concern than maybe in the past, for me at least, it's probably because I've seen this movie once, but B, the enrollments this fall were the first time that Mr. Kane's 5-year-old birth to entering kindergarten ratio did not hold. Even in that other decade, that ratio held, that a certain percentage, and it was actually 100%. Now, not every kid born 5 years ago, that kid, it's him or herself enters kindergarten, but there was always enough consistency, and if people moved out, more people moved in, that it was about 100% of 5-year-olds born 5 years ago entered kindergarten. And this past year is the first time that did not happen in real life, the first time ever. So that's pretty alarming. And it's alarming because, all those years of enrollment decline, probably the most common question I got often from county commissioners was, what happened to the kids? Like, where did they go? They didn't vanish. Generally, what happens is a 12th grade class graduates that was predicated on a large class size when they were kindergartners, and that class that has now graduated is replaced by a much smaller kindergarten classroom. The problem with that repeating is that grows throughout your projections. And so each year when Mr. Kane updates his ratio, you replace a larger class with a smaller class and do it again and again and again, and suddenly you have a very smaller school system, and suddenly you have much less state funding. And suddenly there's a lot more pressure on the county. And then the county conditions, development is at an all-time low, or a recent history low. The county's policy right now is to defer development. So that's not a condition to anticipate growth and more kids. And, I think we said this at the work session, one of the commissioners at the state of the county, in talking about long-term planning or thinking for the county, was that their demographers or whatever data source they were referring to would indicate that Carroll County is on a path to age in place and within a decade be a county where, and it was 35, I think, I didn't go back and rewatch it, but 30-some% of the population of Carroll County would be seniors. That does not describe a vibrant school system that's growing and therefore receiving funding. And you're on the receiving end of all of those things. You're the Board of Ed. You can't set county policy if you wanted to, or you can't control enrollment, really. It's just, these are the conditions you're going to deal with. These are the things that make us want to put that chart on a slide and begin to have this conversation, not just last time and tonight, but on into the future, for your sake, for our sake, for the county's sake, and the parent, all the stakeholders. We need to probably start thinking about this again. The first time we went through this, we just struggled through it and tried to live through it and reacted year by year. At least now we know that can become a reality, so maybe we need to try to map our way through it. And as Dr. McCabe always says there at the bottom, we cut $40 million worth of things already. So, for the folks, and they have every right, and I understand their arguments, but for the folks who are saying, why are you doing this thing or proposing this thing, there's not too many good things left. Lots of things were cut a long time ago. Going back to the so-called inflation column, Brenda, if you could go to the other handout. That came up at the work session, and there was a question about sort of how much annual surplus do you have, and couldn't you just reduce it with the figure that you're calling inflationary impacts? And that was an aha moment for me, where I felt like I asked Dr. McCabe, I think I need to better explain at least what I'm saying. Doesn't mean the Board of Ed can't take an action, but inflationary impacts is a term that I don't know if I invented it when I got here, if it was just the term we used, but we've used it forever and it became part of slides. I think probably a safer term probably would have been, with hindsight, something like cost of doing business, which is to say that number of inflationary impacts is not an estimate where we would go something like, well, national CPI or regional CPI was 4% in this fiscal year, so we're going to assume that we would have a 4% increase to our budget. We're going to program that in as inflation. In our case, those are mostly actuals. There are some estimates. The biggest one would be what our actuaries are telling us we should plan to increase the employer contribution towards health care at. So that's an estimate, but it's an estimate from our professional actuaries. In many other cases, it's actuals. And it's everything in the system, but to give you some of the bigger picture items, be like pupil transportation would be a good one. We have a formula by which we reimburse our contractors. The board could change the formula by policy. But we have a formula, and that formula has a lot of elements. One of them is a maintenance cost, for instance, which is based on whatever the regional transportation CPI is on a given day in either October or November. So that's a known. Like, we know what that's going to be. We program that into that number. Special ed, I use that. That's the big one. many examples there, but one would be when we do a budget in a given year, we might say, well, we know we're going to need a contract with service providers for occupational therapy. And we believe that's going to be $80 an hour, so that's how we budget that contract. And then after a year, our actual experience was that contract was $100 per hour. That's a known. We're counting that towards the so-called inflationary impacts. So it's a lot of knowns, it's a lot of actuals, and it's a lot of, and it's some estimates, but they're estimates, professionally developed estimates. So, it obviously made me very nervous that night and tonight to say, well, we do get a surplus, though, in most years, so couldn't we just say inflation won't be whatever we think it would be? 3 or more of you can do that. What I would say to you is to me, that's a concerning approach to take, because to the best of our abilities, those are the costs, compensation aside, those are the costs that we believe you will incur to run Carroll County Public Schools next year without improvements, because compensation is somewhere else. So that to me is a little financially uncertain. Your surplus is the amount of money at the end of a fiscal year, when we audit out a fiscal year, that was not spent. And to try to pick that conversation up again from last time, we can't run your budget in deficit. We try to run your budget as close to the budget as possible, but we can't run over, or else you have to fund it from your fund balance, or you'd have to go to Ted and ask him kindly to fund the deficit you've run. So you're hopefully never going to run red, because you shouldn't. We can't. We're trying to keep our spending to within 1%, which on a $400 million budget to me is fairly impressive. But by doing that, there's hopefully would be a few, some money left over each year. And that annual surplus, once it's audited and unassigned in any way, it's not designated for a use, when you're independent auditors, and they bring the audit to you after they bring it to the audit committee every October-ish, whatever that bottom line is of that year's surplus and all of the previous year's surplus that still exists and are unassigned becomes what we call your unassigned fund balance. Fund balance isn't part of law. It exists in the county because the county and the Board of Ed say it should exist. In our case, in 2008, an MOU was developed between the Board of Ed and the county government to have a fund balance. In 2011, a few years in, with some experience and some growth in it, the Board of Ed adopted a very prudent fund balance policy based on GASB guidance, and so we've been trying to operate with that. We've been trying to only use it for one-time costs, or at least in very careful other instances. I'd say the one place where we have made a deviation is the long-term commitment to funding our facilities maintenance through you populating a capital account from your fund balance. If you scroll to the next page, Brenda, I went ahead based on the conversation and pulled the audited amount from the last 5 audits. And here they are. So in the last 5 years, we have had a negative impact on your unassigned fund balance. We had 2 years of a positive impact. So we are for, either legitimate or we don't have another choice, as with facilities maintenance reasons, exhausting fund balance at a much higher rate than we are repopulating it presently. At earlier meetings, there was actually conversation here about what could we do to repopulate fund balance, and the answer is to dial back its use. One way to try to do that is to ask the county if they could give us some one-time facilities money for 1, 2, or 3 years so that we could take some pressure off. Most of those years of higher numbers have been facilities related. So it's your decision. We have great anxiety over that conversation. I guess what I would say is that, like the best approach or the ideal approach is to control the choices that lead to the cost, but not so much try to set the cost. So if you think transportation's costing too much in the budget, let's make a policy decision to revise the transportation formula to then, by effect, change the cost of transit. And this is, for my friends, that's not a real thing. That's just, pick any example. If you think special ed's too high, some people do. you'd have to figure out a policy way to, if, laptops, we talked about, if you'd like to revert to some other ratio, ideally, let's, with time, figure out the path to get there to try to achieve both the savings outcome and also plan all of the things in. So I've said more than Dr. Dorsey would have wanted me to. I'm going to sit back down and let Mr. Burke finish the slideshow. I know he has one other update from DLS as well.
Yeah, I have a comment about your projected recurring annual budget challenges, and I appreciate you giving us that insight. It was the slide with all the figures on it.
Can you go to the PowerPoint? It shows better. There.
If I can give some gentle pushback, and again, I'm not going to be argumentative here, but your inflation, you have a 10% increase every year on inflation. Do we really think we're going to see a 10% increase in inflationary costs year over year over year over the next 7 years?
We have. It's 8 right now.
Well, that was during the last administration and then the COVID and the response to getting out of COVID. The inflationary figures I see currently show us really going down. So, again, not trying to be confrontational. So I just called to question the inflationary figures. And then second, the compensation figures that you give, you said that assumes what?
A step and 2% COLA.
Okay, step and 2% COLA. I mean, are we really talking about committing to giving a step and 2% COLA from here on out for the next several? I mean, that's 80% of our costs. So just
absolutely,
it's just nuts.
Absolutely, assumptions or estimates.
Yeah.
Okay, but those are variables that we could discuss.
We don't want to lock you as a board into anything.
That's what this insinuates. That's my concern.
And so maybe I could say to that, Dr. McCabe, I hope, tell me if I'm right, by sort of elevating this to her attention and her saying, let's begin to have this conversation, I think what we might be saying, the superintendent might be saying is we do need to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
And it can't all happen tonight, we know that, but probably way earlier than November of next year. And we can unpack inflation. We can say, here are those actuals that have led us to these conclusions. And the board can say, you're wrong, we don't agree with those, or you've been wrong here, so all of those things could happen over time. Not trying to suggest, Mr. Whistler, that this is absolute and would not change.
And more than anything, I think what troubles me is if you take the column of compensation and make it zero, which is of course not realistic, but you still end up with a deficit. So that's why I say, this is bigger. This is an issue that's bigger than just this year's budget and something that I think we need to get out in the open and discuss transparently.
Zimmer, yes.
I personally am grateful for this slide, for the projected reoccurring annual budget challenges, just to get it all out in the open. Last year, I think I made a motion for funding that surprised everyone, including maybe Ted, who's in the audience. I know I surprised a lot of people, and I hindsight being 2020, having all the information out on the table for everyone to see and understand, I think is probably the best way to go, and I'm grateful for this. I don't think it locks us into anything, like Mr. O'Neill said, but starting to have the conversations earlier, I think this particular budget for this year is going to go better than last year because we started so much earlier and because we got the information out there and we're able to figure it out much sooner. So I would like to see us sharing this slide with the commissioners and having a joint meeting with them. I don't know whether that would happen during this budget season this spring or maybe immediately thereafter, but to start creating some kind of a roadmap forward for the out years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Ms. Pataglia.
I was going to say, Dr. Dorsey, I don't know if you remember when we first came on the board, everything was starting to look really good. Projections were looking good. We were asking for more from the county commissioners. We were doing more in compensation. Inflation was not that high. Everything was looking really pretty. And the school system was getting all excited. And then COVID happened.
Right. We had a 5-year plan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it hit us hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is important because, people like to say you shouldn't be talking about what ifs, but that's a nice what if. Yeah. Let's say we have another pandemic.
Yeah. Or a recession.
Or a recession. you never know what could happen in 6 months, 9 months. And I think this is important to take a look at. And we could be looking pretty, for right now in the economy, but all a matter of 3 months, things can change drastically. So I think this is important to look at. And it gives us, the public and the county, a snapshot of, okay, these are the potentials going forward. Let's say inflation doesn't go up that much, then we have a little bit of a cushion to do what we possibly need to do, whether it might be an extra HVAC project that we could take care of, with the fund balance or anything of that magnitude. God forbid we'd need more lights in a stadium. But and these are things that I think definitely benefit the public to understand, like, where we need to go. And Ms. Zimmer, again, last year, 3 of us, asked for crazy numbers, but it was because we need to make sure that our school system is funded properly and our students and our community is taken care of and our staff.
Yeah, I appreciate the placeholders and the insight. It's important to put it all in perspective. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Mr. Berg.
I'll wrap up here, just updating some information that we've shared in the past. I think at the board session, at the work session, we shared what was still fiscal year 25 data at that point, and then the next day we realized that they had released that day the FY 26. So this is updated data of fiscal year 26 per pupil funding released by the Department of Legislative Services. We had said, where would we fall, and continue in position 24 from the prior year. No change.
Mr. Berg, I was going to say, can you just clarify as far as local revenue, where do we place?
I'm sorry?
So on the local side, so people don't understand, like, it's not locally, Carroll is 24 out of 24 in the district.
This is total, so this is
total.
combined state and local. This information is broken down separately. I didn't show it here for ranking by local and by state. By my recollection, we sort of end up,
I think we're ninth.
yeah,
about ninth in local
midpoint
funding.
in each of those. But when you combine total per pupil funding,
Right.
we're at the lowest. So that, I think we've discussed it. It's a little bit of a result of from the state's perspective for county funding, our wealth position, and then, where we are in local funding. So
Right.
there is additional data, and we can dive into that further
Right.
if needed as well.
I just wanted to make sure that the community knew that this is not, like, 24 out of 24 is combined, but where the county was,
I think the county has given us 39 million. It's
where we
it's
were
a
in
substantial amount that they've given us, more than required over the last,
So
since I've been on the board.
if you do
about
it,
that.
if you break it down, we're about, with the new data, 10th
10th.
on
Okay.
local and
Dead last state.
18th at state. So it's not that at either we're lowest, it's sort of when you combine it.
When you
Which is, our total budget there, so.
all right. And I think that's important for the community to know, too. Like, we're not 24 out of 24 done locally. That's total.
Yeah.
But the county has, we're 10th from the county's perspective. Thank you.
And again, we get let state because the wealth index and,
No changes, I don't think, just continuing to provide the information on compensation and fund balance use. No changes from the prior presentation or the budget there. I just wanted to end with the upcoming steps, obviously tonight or by March 1st, providing the adopted budget to the county. And I heard a comment there, will we have a chance to present some information to the commissioners when they begin their budget process in March? They'll lay out their proposed, begin to have their agency hearings, and we'll have an opportunity to meet with and address the commissioners for our request, for our background, and any questions they have for us. That will already be scheduled in, and if we wish to have any additional deeper conversations, that could be held as well before they head into the final steps in May as they begin to finalize their budget, and we'll be back to adjust our budget with any, as we have more information from where the county's heading. So
I appreciate
tonight's
it, Mr.
one
Burke.
step, it's not the final step.
Appreciate it. And I will say, before we entertain motions, amendments, I'm assuming amendments will start flying. I'd like to just mention Dr. McCabe, staff, thank you so much for putting this together. It's tough. I think the community has seen just how tough it is. I will tell you, Dr. McCabe, from a personal note, I agree with everything in your budget except eliminating outdoor school. I would love to see us keep outdoor school. I understand that there's concerns of how we're going to pay for it, and concerns of, risks, either perceived or real. But, to shut down a 50-year tradition, it just blows my mind. But I'm not going to make an amendment. I will sit back and entertain from the floor an amendment to Dr. McCabe's budget.
I don't have an amendment, and I don't even know if I necessarily have it, or I could make the motion, but just to throw it out there that I believe that Dr. McCabe's request for additional funding and proposed actions to balance deficits are necessary to prioritize the system's overall fiscal stability, because what we are looking at down the road with declining enrollment and that 5-year look-ahead slide. So I believe I will personally like to move forward with Dr. McCabe's budget as proposed. And again, that's not, maybe we hear from the
I
others.
got you. Yeah, is there any other discussion? Again, we have a motion on the floor to approve her budget as presented. But is there any more discussion, or would someone like to offer an amendment?
Well,
Dr. Dorsey?
mine are comments. I don't know whether they'll lead to an amendment or not, but again, first of all, I do certainly appreciate the due diligence that the staff exercised in coming up with this budget to meet the needs of the school system in light of all of the challenges that we face. As a board member, I've always held the position that we are to advocate for the needs of the system. For our future schools to resemble what is currently in place, I don't think we have a choice, as far as I can see, than asking the commissioners for more money to really fund our budget. The only reduction that I will support basically is this reduce the teacher FTE with the decline in enrollment, which is the 15 FTE. And again, it looks like those 7 FTEs from the Blueprint TSI are sunsetted anyway, so that could just be the 2 million. If we add that 1.3 and the 7, I would like to say yes, I would support keeping those 2 in to help balance the deficit, but I would like to see us continue with keeping our outdoor school and keeping the other items from this one slide. I'd like to keep those still in the budget. Yeah, so keep the outdoor school, and I see this 4 million here. I'm looking at the page where we're looking at the deficits. Again, I only see numbers 2 and 3 as something that I would support from the proposed budget.
I'm sorry, just a point of clarification. Isn't the 4 million of the one-time funding, that is included in your budget, Dr. McCabe? Yeah.
That's in the ask for.
Yeah.
That's in her ask
Commissioner.
now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so again, our motion on the floor right now is to adopt her budget. It includes that 4 million one-time money ask, and that would include her request in that. So that's how we're budgeting the budget, balancing the budget. Ms. Battaglia?
What the 1.4
So
is.
I just wanted to make sure, Ms. Zimmer, you're saying what is proposed here, these items, that is what you're put a motion on, correct?
Yes, I am in favor of the budget as it reads, with the cuts that she included, as well as the additional one-time funding and the 5 million in ongoing.
So I'll second your motion.
Actually, I don't think it's a motion. So just
There's
point
no
of
motion
order.
up yet, but I think we're still talking about it and considering. I said at the budget meeting, I said last year I wasn't going to cut outdoor school, and I still am not going to cut outdoor school. My vote will be no to cutting outdoor school, and that is again all the things that go with it. And I'm sorry that there are some liability issues, that sort of thing, but there's so much enrichment with it, experiential learning. I just wrote some of the things, and it's not just my thoughts, it's also, from the emails that we've received, but experiential learning, independence, problem solving, teamwork, environmental competency, physical and mental health, socialization built. These are very important aspects that students are getting from the outdoor school. And I know that part of our values at Carroll County in terms of we're ranked number 1 in terms of land preservation in the state and ranked number 2 throughout the whole country. It's just one of these things where, for me, I don't think I would include outdoor school as part of this proposed action.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. Again, just hearing all the discussion, I know there's a motion on the floor to adopt her budget as is, which is including cutting outdoor school. If I may, I'd like to offer an amendment. I'd like to move we amend her budget and ask the commissioners for an additional $1.4 million to fund outdoor school. So that would make the request $14 million, and then an additional, I believe it is $4 million, the one-time money ask. But that's, so I move we increase the, I move we amend the budget to retain outdoor school and ask the commissioners for an additional $1.4 million in funding to pay for it. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend her budget to include outdoor school and to request the additional funds from the commissioners. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Ms. Zimmer?
I just want to make a note that as we go into this vote, that I will be voting predicated on the fact that I have heard from 3 of my colleagues that they're in agreement, that they do not want to cut outdoor school and that they want to be asking the commissioners for an additional 1.4 million. So again, my vote is based on the fact that 3 people have already indicated that.
Dr. Dorsey?
Just for some clarity, again, your amendment is keeping the outdoor school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then did you say for an additional, then just to ask for that additional 1.4, which would be a total of what?
I believe the total would be 14 million, and then on top of that, you have your $4 million one-time request. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
staff.
that's what I want, the bottom line number. So it's the 18?
So it'll be 14 million in recurring money,
Right, because the 1.4
To save outdoor school would be ongoing.
ongoing funding from the commissioners, and then an additional 4 million one-time ask for the technology and maintenance.
So you'd have to add those two together here, but that basically, Mr. Whistler, that 5 million below the chart would
It would be
become
6.4.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second to amend Dr. McCabe's budget to retain outdoor school. Is there any more discussion on my amendment? Without objection, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to amend Dr. McCabe's budget passes. So now the original question, adopting the operating budget for an additional 14 million and an additional 4 million one-time request money, that is still on the floor. Is there any more discussion about Dr. McCabe's overall budget? Hearing none, without objection, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Before you call for the question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
We want to clarify it on the screen.
You need to technically
Yeah.
approve the major categorical totals
Okay.
that amount to that budget. And Drew says he has it
It'll just
ready.
take a minute, take a few seconds, or a minute.
You're good. Okay, we don't need a recess. Mr.
Okay,
Sexton is
great.
saying these numbers are solid.
So again, it's nice that this budget will retain all of the things that we've heard public comment about. And so I appreciate the due diligence and work. So to call the question, are we doing this by each category?
No, you can actually go ahead and
Okay.
do the,
So the overall budget?
You're gonna approve these major categorical, if your motion would incorporate this.
Correct.
This is the operating budget, then you'll need a second motion for the food service fund and
Yes,
then a
sir.
third motion for
Yeah.
debt service.
So again, we have a motion on the floor to amend Dr. McCabe's budget as displayed on the screen. Any more discussion? Calling the question, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Battaglia. There's still discussion.
I just wanted to point out that, last year, when there was requests for additional funding, some board members caught all kinds of ridicule. There were even comments made about being fiscally irresponsible. And, this year I don't agree. I think we need to show good faith in doing a couple of cuts before going to the county commissioners and saying, but we need additional funds. So, I'm sorry, but I think this is fiscally irresponsible to not make any attempt. Because next year, you're going to have 2 board members who are going to be going through the ringer again. And then you're going to have, more board members constantly going down the rabbit hole. And, I wish there was this much public outcry 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when this keeps coming down. We heard that there's a petition with 13,000 signatures, but yet that petition was actually developed in 2013. So I think that speaks, that, again, this is something that keeps coming up over and over and over again, and nobody wants to be the responsible adult in the room and just say, you know what, we got to do something, we got to fix this a little bit. So I just wanted to make sure it was publicly stated that, I caught all kinds of holy hell last year because I and 2 other board members asked for more money, and we asked for help, and we were told we were fiscally irresponsible. So I just wanted to make that statement perfectly clear.
Thank you for sharing that. I think last year was a very different circumstance, but 57 compared to what we're looking at now, and also those who knew that perhaps a waiver would assist us in trying different measures. But I think this year, we have one thing, and maybe, Ms. Battaglia, you can tell us what you would want to cut. I don't know what those cuts are. The thing that we've brought forth is outdoor school, and that's just something that we want to keep. So I don't know what the other cuts are.
Is there any other discussion by colleagues?
Just
Call-
a high
Yes, Ms.
note
Zimmer.
is that I am thrilled that this board was able to find consensus, at least on the 5,000, I'm sorry, excuse me, I wish 5,000, $5 million ask. And, I just think we're heading in the right direction. And I know there are some difficult hiccups and we're not all getting exactly what we want, but I do appreciate the consensus and I'm excited to vote.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmer. I call the question without objection. All those in favor of the new operating budget for $14 million and an additional $4 million in one-time money signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? 4-1. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda. May I have a motion to approve our food service budget?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Zimmer. Dr. McCabe.
okay. So this is the food service budget. This needs to be adopted each year along with the operating budget and the debt service budget. Mr. O'Neill?
And as a reminder, this is the closest thing we have to sort of an enterprise fund. This food service program is self-funded based on either money for meals or reimbursements from the federal government. And so it is its own fund and needs to be approved accordingly under state law.
Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. And if I can remind the public, this is the only budget that has no county money in it, right? This is all, that other category are the revenues taken in by students who pay for their lunches. And if you could remind me, when's the last time we've raised the prices for school lunches?
I can tell you that we have not raised prices in the last 16 years because.
Can you say that again louder?
It's been at least 16 years.
16 years we have not raised the price of our school lunches for our students. So thank you so much. I just wanted to advertise that good news. Is there any discussion about the food service budget? Hearing none, without objection, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now may I have a motion to approve our debt service budget?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia, seconded by Dr. Malvo. Dr. McCabe.
Mr. O'Neill, anything on the debt service budget that stands out for this year?
The debt service budget, just as a reminder, you have zero control over, but legally you must approve it. The debt service fund budget reflects the amount of service that the county government is paying on the debt of bonds issued to fund public school construction projects. And so they set that every year based on their bond payment schedule, et cetera.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Is there any discussion by colleagues? Hearing none, without objection, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have our, may I have a motion to approve our personnel action items?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey, seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. McCabe.
For the monthly personnel action items, there are 3 new hires, 1 release from contract, 1 broken contract, 2 promotions, 2 increases in FTE, and 2 decreases in FTE.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Is there any discussion by colleagues? Hearing none, without objection, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, may I have a motion for approval of appointments?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Dorsey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Whistler. In accordance with Section 4-201B of the Education article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, the superintendent's term is for 4 years, subject to the right of the superintendent to notify the board no later than February 1st of the year in which her term expires, advising that she is a candidate for reappointment. Dr. McCabe has provided timely notification to the board, advising that she is seeking reappointment for an additional 4-year term, commencing on July 1st, 2026. In accordance with Section 4-201B3 of the Education article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, the board is required to take final action at a public meeting no later than March 1st on whether to reappoint the superintendent for a new 4-year term effective July 1st, 2026. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion?
I just want to thank you for representing our school system. I'm glad I got to hire you. That was awesome.
Dr. Malva?
I just want to reiterate that as well. We appreciate the hard work you and the staff have done. Thank you.
I'd like to say, first of all, Dr. McCabe, again, I can't say enough to echo my colleagues' comments. We appreciate your stewardship, your leadership. I've always compared you to that captain on the deck of that ship in the rough, stormy seas, and you're just, nothing phases you, nothing. Bombs going off around you, and you're still composed, professional, and an unbelievable representative of our system. And so you're one of the finest chief executives I've ever worked alongside, and I've worked alongside a lot. So again, I appreciate your leadership. I'd also like to say thank you to Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Dorsey kind of headed our committee to look at this issue. And Dr. Dorsey, I appreciate your leadership in that. Thank you for.
You're so welcome,
Thank you
and
for
I'm not
bringing this
finished
forward.
yet.
Yes, ma'am. It's all on you. I will give you the floor.
Okay, and certainly I echo the sentiments that have been shared, Dr. McCabe. You know, we're very fortunate and blessed to have you at the helm, so thank you so much. So at this time, I call for the vote for the reappointment of Superintendent McCabe, effective July 1st, 2026. All in favor? Aye. And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey.
Okay, at this time, I call for a motion to approve the new contract by and between the Board of Education and Dr. McCabe. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Mr. Whistler and seconded by Mrs. Zimmer. Is there a discussion? Okay, well, without any discussion, let's call for the vote. All of those who are in favor of approving the new contract for Dr. McCabe, between Dr. McCabe and the Board of Ed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And again, thank you very much again, Dr. McCabe. So now I'm finished.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. Again, I appreciate your leadership there. Now we move to the point of the agenda where we have, yeah, very much so.
And that speaks volumes to have your staff congratulate you as well. So thank you all.
Thank you again, Dr. Dorsey, for your leadership there for this major effort and initiative. Now we move to part 7 of our agenda is discussion. Is there any discussion issues or items that any of my colleagues want to bring up? Okay, well then with that, I will make the announcement that at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, March 11th, we will have our board meeting with public participation in the boardroom at 125 North Court Street, Westminster. Last call. Any other issues or concerns for discussion? I ask, yes, Dr. McCabe. I'm sorry, we should have given you the floor.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to just quickly say thank you for trusting me with this huge responsibility. It's truly a privilege and an honor to be here to lead this system, and I'm grateful. Grateful to you, grateful to my cabinet and the rest of the staff. It really is a joy to come in every day and work on behalf of the students, staff, parents, and community. This is year 32 for me, and I am, I think, more passionate today about good public education than I was in year 1. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
Superintendent of the Year? Can we work on that?
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I think you're a great candidate for it. So again, I'd like to have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Ms. Zimmer. Without objection, we stand adjourned.